Just want to give you a quick synopsis of what we have planned today. We will have a presentation from Allied Trades Assistance Program on behavioral health. They are Local 475's provider for mental health care. This is an ever-growing concern in today's world, and we want to provide as much information as possible. Thanks to the Mental Health Parity Act, your health and welfare plan is mandated to provide this coverage. We all know that we have health insurance when we have to go to the doctor, the emergency room, or the dentist. Many of us are not fully aware that we have insurance to receive care for drug addiction, alcohol abuse, eating disorders, or any other behavioral health issues. Too often these issues are not properly addressed. It could be the lack of knowledge, or it could be neglected because of embarrassment. It is important that you pay close attention to the program, absorb the information, and always be prepared and mature enough to help yourself, your family member, or your coworker. Today you're going to hear from Mary Ann Wolf, who is the Managed Care Supervisor at ATAP, and from Joe Carey, who is a Client Care Counselor at Allied Trades. Following their presentation, we will hear from our friends at Empower, our Surety Fund Manager. Michael Walsh is our Client Relations Manager with Empower, and he will be joined by Joan Check, a licensed financial planner. They will provide a brief outline of our surety fund, how to check your account, invest your money, and the pros and cons of making withdrawals. You'll also get a few words from a Local 475 retiree, Mark Hendrickson, who will touch on the many benefits of being a Local 475 member, from apprenticeship right through retirement. After Mr. Hendrickson, there's going to be a buffet lunch. And if all goes according to schedule, we should have you out of here by 11:30. So before we get started, I want to recognize our funds administrator, Kim DeVizio. She handles all your benefit monies that come into the hall from your contractors. That would include your health and welfare, your pension, your surety fund, your personal fund, vacation fund, and education fund. And along with Marta and Lori, they do a great job at the funds office. I'd also want to recognize your three business agents, Timmy McConway, John Sinnott, and Tom Manning. They're always working hard, policing their territories, and dispatching jobs. But they're also your benefit fund trustees. That means they're making decisions regarding your benefits, present benefits and future benefits. And last but not least, I'd like to recognize your training coordinator, Bob Sherlock, and your instructor, Tim Murphy. These guys have been working together for years, molding young apprentices like yourselves into productive steam fitters. So at this time, I'm going to turn the podium over to Mary Ann Wolf and Joe Carey from Allied Trades Assistance Program.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I just want to thank you guys for allowing us to come out this morning. My name's Mary Ann Wolf. I am the Managed Care Supervisor for the Allied Trades Assistance Program. In terms of the Allied Trades Assistance Program, specifically for you guys, we are your Employee Assistance Program. What does that mean? We're going to go over what an Employee Assistance Program means, but the first part of the presentation is really looking at what construction workers are facing in terms of substance use disorder and mental health. We all know that there's a lot of substances on job sites. For an individual who is actively using or who is in recovery, this puts them at a very vulnerable state. So what we're doing today is coming out, educating you guys on what it is, how to handle it, know that help is out there, and what you can do to help your fellow coworker, a family member, even your dependents. So substance use and mental health does not discriminate. It affects every level of a family, whether it be a father, a mother, a daughter, a son. It affects everyone. The first part is very heavy in statistics. So I may be looking at the screen a little bit more than usual because statistics are changing every day. There's new trends out there that are changing and are changing the drug market that individuals are buying the substances from. So if you have any questions, I welcome them. Please raise your hand and we'll get to your questions while we're doing the information. You don't have to wait till the end to ask questions. We will have a formal question and answer, but while we're in the information, just raise your hand and I'll do my best to answer. Do you want to say?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joe Carey. I'm the Client Care Counselor with Allied Trades Assistance Program. Mary Ann touched on some of the stuff that we're going to be going over. Just a reminder to be mindful of your comments, questions, that some of the issues that we're going to talk about today, the person next to you might be dealing with this themselves or a family member at home. So just be courteous to the people around you.
Okay. All right, let's get started. Addiction in construction. What is addiction? I don't know if I lost the slide. Okay, so addiction is a series of rewards that your body craves. So that can be anything from substances to different behaviors. And it starts with, just an individual partying on the weekends, using substances on the weekends. It ranges from alcohol to heroin to cocaine to methamphetamine. When it becomes an addiction, it becomes when your body craves it, when your brain is telling you you need this substance to function. So some of these are caffeine and coffee, nicotine, THC, pain relievers, cocaine, food, technology, gambling, and sex. So what is the progression of addiction? Addiction usually comes in what is known as stages. Your body reacts differently depending on what stage of addiction you are on. Why is addiction common among construction workers? What is the number one reason individuals are prescribed opiates in the construction industry? Injury. Okay. You go to the doctor, they prescribe you a painkiller. Opiates, Percocets, OxyContin, anything possibly that you could imagine the doctor will prescribe you. What happens? Your body feels a relief from that pain. Your body, and it's a temporary relief until your body becomes tolerant on that substance. When your body becomes tolerant, your body is craving more and more of that substance to get the same pain relief that you had at onset of taking the medication. So when the body becomes addicted, you crave more and more. A doctor's giving you 30-day supply of that medication. Odds are an individual who is addicted will run out of that medication within 15 to 20 days, maybe even shorter lengths of time, depending on how many times an individual is taking that medication. An individual then goes to the street to buy what they think is that Percocet, that OxyContin. The drug market today is not the same that it was 10 years ago. Pills are fluorescent green, they're blue. They're not the same medication that an individual is receiving at the pharmacy because they're pressed now with fentanyl. So we've seen the trends go across as the years progress. First, it was the heroin epidemic. Then it was the fentanyl epidemic. Now on the street is what is called trank, which I'm going to get into in a little bit. So when an individual is taking those pills, they're now not becoming addicted to that pill, they're becoming addicted to the fentanyl. They then come to realize that buying heroin, which is also laced with fentanyl, is a lot cheaper. So then the individual progresses to the heroin and fentanyl addiction. It's a vicious cycle that an individual then sees themselves in, where honestly, treatment, inpatient treatment is the way that an individual is going to get the help that they need. Any questions? Okay. Risk factors that can often lead to exacerbation of addiction in construction workers include high stress levels, high anxiety, long work days, physical demands, pain-inducing, high accident rate, and danger. So I'm just going to touch on the high accident rate. Odds are, if you are on a work site and there is an accident and you come up positive for any type of substance, there is a risk that your insurance company will not pay the medical claims. So just keep that in the back of your mind. If you know anyone who is using or is using any form of substance, you're not only putting yourself at risk, but you're putting everybody else on that work site at risk if an individual is working under the influence. What is not visible are the stress and chronic physical and emotional pain that construction workers experience from working long hours, having to work while injured, and worrying about job security. While being a construction worker does pay well, the dangers, anxiety, and possibility of witnessing a coworker suffer a serious accident are always in the back of one's mind. To help construction workers feel better and get back to work, doctors routinely prescribe pain relievers like opiates. Unfortunately, opioids are highly addicted, and many construction workers return to work before they are healed, risking further injury, not to mention working under the influence. Alcohol use among construction workers. A higher percentage of construction workers engage in heavy drinking than workers in almost any other industry. According to SAMHSA, 16.5% of construction workers reported that they drink heavily. This was found to be true regardless of age or gender. Heavy drinking, defined as 5 or more drinks on one occasion several times per month, is often indicative of substance use disorder. Alcohol is probably the most difficult thing that we have to deal with in our office, especially with individuals between the ages of 18 to 26. When we get individuals that call into our office seeking inpatient treatment, they often say, I'm addicted to opiates, cocaine, methamphetamine, benzos. Well, do you use alcohol? Yeah, but that's not a problem. Okay, so we put them into inpatient treatment. While they're in inpatient treatment, they're addressing the signs and symptoms of the opiate use disorder and the other substance use disorder, but they're not acknowledging the alcohol use. And they say, I'm going to get out of here. I'm still going to drink. You know, alcohol is not my problem, which is fine. Oftentimes, an individual then gets out of treatment, continues to use alcohol, which is also a mind-altering substance, and they become addicted to that alcohol because they want that same high that they were getting from the opiates or other substances. What happens then, it leads back to the primary substance, whether it be opiates or cocaine. It leads them back to that use because they're not getting the same high that they once did while using those drugs. So that becomes another vicious cycle that the individual is going in. And until they acknowledge that the alcohol ties in with the other substance use, they're never going to get out of that cycle into recovery. Marijuana, the nation's most used illicit substance. Why are we talking about marijuana today? It's legal now. Okay. So medical marijuana. Marijuana remains a drug listed in the Schedule I of Controlled Substance Act. It remains unacceptable for any safety-sensitive employee subject to drug testing. That's all of you guys sitting in this room. Since they made marijuana legal, it has been an ongoing struggle to get individuals the help that they need, because they call into our office, I tested positive on a drug screen, but I have a medical marijuana card. According to the DOT, we do not have to acknowledge marijuana as a legal form for medical reasons. It remains unacceptable for any safety-sensitive employee subject to drug testing under the Department of Transportation. So what I always tell individuals is check with your employer, check with your union, see what their policies are. Because if you're to test positive, it's still considered a failed drug screen if you test positive, regardless of your medical marijuana card status. We do not have to acknowledge that. So, will my employer be required to provide a reasonable accommodation for registered medical marijuana? At the federal level, marijuana is illegal. While the Americans with Disabilities Act requires employees to make reasonable accommodations for qualified workers with disabilities, possessing and using marijuana for any purpose is still prohibited, regardless of state law. That means under the ADA, employers do not need to accommodate marijuana use, even for approved medical reasons. Is there any questions with this? Okay. Opiate use among construction workers. Prescription pain relievers such as Percocet, Percodan, Vicodin alleviate moderate to severe pain caused by musculoskeletal disorders. Addiction to prescription opioids like Vicodin can happen within several weeks of starting the drug. As tolerance builds to an opiate, the user finds out that they must take more and more of the substance to get that same pain relief, which we've covered numerous times throughout this training. So opioid-specific overdose deaths. Opioid-involved overdoses rose from 21,000 in 2010 to 47,000 in 2017 and remained steady through 2019. There was a significant increase in 2020 with 68,000 reported deaths, and again in 2021 to 80,000. More than 70% of deaths occurred among males. Since 2016, overdose deaths involving heroin have trended down, with 9,173 in 2021. The reason why heroin-specific deaths have trended down is because the leading cause of the opioid-involved deaths with the increase is because of the fentanyl. It's because of the substances laced with fentanyl. So when individuals are tested at time of death, they're testing for fentanyl, not pure heroin. Tranq. So Tranq is now on the streets in Philadelphia. There's a high percentage of Tranq that individuals are using. So what is it? Tranq is an animal tranquilizer that is not approved for human consumption. So we see the waves of the drug pattern. So first, years and years ago, it was the cocaine, then it was the methamphetamine, then it was the heroin, the fentanyl, now it's Tranq. So what happens when an individual uses Tranq? If an individual injects Tranq into their body, it doesn't matter where it's being injected at. You could inject it into your arm, your feet, your legs, your neck. It is causing abscesses in individuals regardless of where this drug is injected. So you could inject it in your arm, get an abscess on your leg. 9 times out of 10, people who are in an active addiction do not go to the hospital to get medical attention for any type of abscess. So when individuals are getting to the hospital, the only option they have at that point, because the abscess is so bad, is amputation. So the news has been providing a lot of coverage of this over the last couple of months, and they've been interviewing individuals in hospitals who are getting medical attention. Despite losing limbs because of this drug, people are being treated in the hospital and going back out and using it. Their mind is so addicted they can't see the consequences of getting their arms or legs amputated, and they're continuing to use. What do you guys need to work? Your arms and your legs. So if they take your arms and legs away, you may not have a career. So just be mindful that this is what's going on now on the streets. Present-day opioid epidemic. Manufactured fentanyl and tranq has become present in drug markets. So when the fentanyl epidemic came about, people who were interviewed or you talked to, they craved that pure heroin. Then it became the fentanyl, they're addicted to the fentanyl. Now that tranq is on the market, they're craving that fentanyl, where you can't find pure heroin at all on the street. So it's just, again, that wave of different trends. Non-opioid users are dying as fentanyl is being mixed with other drugs such as cocaine and methamphetamine. When an individual calls into our office and they have an active substance use disorder, we work to get them in treatment as quick as possible. So when an individual is saying they're using cocaine or methamphetamine, they don't meet criteria for detox. So they're put in what's called residential or rehab. When an individual is then placed in treatment, every treatment facility takes a urine drug screen upon admission. A lot of individuals, despite being adamant that they only use cocaine or methamphetamine, are now testing positive for fentanyl. So then that requires a higher level of care at that point where they would need the detox. So individuals don't even know that they're using the substances that the drugs are being laced with. So data is trending to likely show that fatal overdoses have increased dramatically in many communities during the COVID-19 pandemic. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, individuals who were in recovery, all their sober supports shut down. Whether that was an individual who was in treatment, attending 12-step meetings, all those supports until people got hip to the Zoom and everything was over your phone, you could do it in the comfort of your own home. A lot of individuals lost their support system because of it temporarily. Unfortunately, our older adults who may not be so into technology, they might not have a smartphone to do the Zoom, they still have the flip phones. Their sober supports shut down, which led them to then relapse. So as years go by and as more statistics come out over the next couple of years, we're going to truly see what the pandemic's effects were on individuals who were in recovery from substances. Construction workers have the highest mortality rates for drug overdose deaths and prescription opioid-related overdose deaths, according to the CDC. Construction workers are 7 times more likely to die of an opioid overdose than workers in any other industry. Construction workers have the highest proportion of heroin-related overdose deaths, and construction workers represent about 25% of fatal overdoses among all workers. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it is a lot when you're looking at these numbers for construction workers. So fighting the addiction crisis in the construction industry. Addiction is a disease, and without professional treatment, the battle against it is one you cannot win. A lot of individuals who call into our office, they don't want to go into inpatient for 7 to 28 days. The first 7 days, you're detoxing. The next 21 days, or however long it may take, is really when you're doing the work on yourself to change the behaviors that you had to cope just with life. We often get, I can't be out of work for 30 days, I can't be out of work for 7 days, I don't have any time off, I don't want my union to know, I don't want my boss to know. We try and work with individuals on where they're at, so we'll refer them to a lower level of care, such as a partial hospitalization program or an intensive outpatient program. However, the individual will stop going because their addiction again takes over. So this might prolong the inevitable, whether it be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 months, the individual ends up coming back needing that inpatient treatment because they can't stop on their own. There's a reason why there's a detox and a rehab for individuals. It's to safely detox off the medication, and it's to safely provide the treatment necessary to change the behaviors. It doesn't end when you get out of treatment. You have to continue to work on yourself, but it gives you that kickstart where you can then get out, start working, attend treatment while working, and find that work-life balance that will allow an individual to sustain long-term recovery. Destigmatizing addiction in the workplace, and especially in the construction industry, will bring attention and consideration to seeking residential addiction treatment. Coworkers can help decrease the stigma around substance use by supporting those struggling and not ignoring the signs of addiction in those they care about. Mental health. Trying to tell the difference between what is expected behaviors are and what might be a sign of mental illness is not always clear. There is no easy test that can let someone know if there is a mental illness or if actions and thoughts might be typical behaviors of a person or the result of physical illness. Everyone's situation must be assessed carefully. Comprehensive treatment, just like with substance use, to prevent early symptoms from progressing into serious illness can include ongoing individual family counseling, educational support, participation in multifamily problem solving, and medication when appropriate. Family members are always valued partners because oftentimes we get collateral information that an individual might not provide to us. They're going to provide to you what they're saying rather than the individual's account of what's going on. So identifying early signs: unexplained feelings of sadness, confused thinking, excessive fear and worry, extreme mood changes, withdrawal from friends and family, significant tiredness, low energy, or problems sleeping, and inability to cope with daily problems and stress. Statistically, our industry is one of the worst in terms of workers suffering with mental health issues and one of the highest rates of suicide per industry in the U.S. The construction industry is the perfect example of how differently society views physical and mental health. The construction industry is number one in two things that they probably shouldn't be: overdose deaths and suicide. So we're male dominated, and the perception that men who work within it are tough. This is probably the hardest barrier that we have to break down with individuals. We often get calls that, "I don't know what's wrong with me, you just have to help me." Without an individual telling us full details of what exactly is going on, we can't properly help them. But older adults in the construction industry do not want to tell you about their vulnerabilities. They don't want to share their feelings. They don't want to tell you they're sad, they're depressed, they're anxious. They've been in this industry for so long that you just brush it off, continue to work, and get over it. I had an individual call probably a couple years ago, and it will always stick in my mind. It was an older individual, one of our union members. He called, he's like, "You just have to tell me what I have to do." I needed the information. He wouldn't provide any information, but he did tell me that he was suicidal and he planned to kill himself that night. Although when somebody calls us and they tell us that they're depressed or anxious, we don't automatically go on alert. But if somebody is telling us that they're suicidal, we have to do everything in our power to protect that individual from harming themselves or anyone else around them. While trying to evaluate and see what was going on, he wasn't giving up any information. All that I knew is that he was alone in the house and he had firearms in the house. So the individual became very frustrated with me because I kept on trying to explore what was definitely going on, see if there was a plan, see if there was there was obviously a means, there was a plan. So we had to keep that individual safe. I tried to get him to go to the crisis center. He didn't want to. I tried to get another family member on the phone. He didn't want to call them. In the end, he hung up on me. The call doesn't stop because somebody hangs up on them. I'm a licensed social worker and I'm a certified employee assistance professional, which makes me a mandated reporter. So what I have to do is keep that individual safe despite them not wanting to acknowledge what was going on or hanging up with me. Please don't take this the wrong way. We don't call the cops on everybody that calls into our office. We once had that come out of a training that ATAP only calls the police on people. We don't do that, but in these situations, we have to. So that specific township had a crisis response team associated with their police department. So they had licensed professionals to go out along with the police to do a wellness check. So a lot of times, sometimes the police will give me a call back to tell me what the outcome was. Sometimes they'll say, due to confidentiality, we can't tell you. This one crisis response worker was very nice. She called me. She said he accepted help, which is all that I needed to hear. But at the same time, he wasn't happy with me for having the cops show up at his house, which I'm fine with. I'm good. As long as I know that he's safe, it doesn't matter to me how angry somebody gets, as long as I know that they're safe and getting help that they need. So the men who work within it are tough. That is something that we have to deal with every day when we're trying to provide help for an individual when they're not so open to talking about feelings and how they're doing and what's going on. So this often takes a little bit to break down in an individual. So recent surveys have suggested that 64% of construction workers want better support for their physical health, mental health, and overall well-being. The CDC has found that the construction industry exhibits many common risk factors that are associated with feelings of helplessness. They don't want to come across as being weak, but individuals need help. Calling into our office will allow somebody to be as open as possible without the judgment of being weak, regardless of whether it's a substance use issue or a mental health issue. So many workers feel forced to deal with it, not seeking out the help that they need, and symptoms get worse. To counteract this long-standing challenge, the mental health of your workforce needs to be prioritized at the same level as safety on the jobs. So we're going to talk about suicide awareness. Suicide is a stigmatized topic. People often do not talk about it, and misperceptions and myths can grow easily. What we know is talking openly about suicide in a responsible manner can have the opposite effect on an individual struggling. So I'm going to talk about two different situations that came across my desk, probably within weeks of each other. The first one was a business manager who called in and said, I have a guy, he's using substances, you need to call, you need to get him into treatment. This isn't the first time he did it. He was sober for 6 months. I know he's using da-da-da-da-da. There was no urine drug screen to support the accusations that the individual had relapsed. So I give him a call. So here he was still in recovery. He hadn't relapsed. He was going to see a psychiatrist for mental health medications, but they were working with him on finding the appropriate medication to address his signs and symptoms. So when an individual is put on a mental health medication, if you increase it, decrease it, add another medication, it can mimic signs and symptoms of withdrawal or use of a substance. So here he was trying to find the appropriate medication that would address his signs and symptoms. He felt very stigmatized. He felt very judged. He didn't want to go back to the union. So we got him linked with a therapist in coordination with the psychiatrist to get him the help that he needed. I don't know if he went back to the union. I don't know if he continues to work for the union. All they know is that because of the judgment and the fact that he went to this individual 6 months before, he was holding that over his head rather than just saying, hey, what's going on with you? You're not looking good. He was late for work. He was not in out on the job. That can be the effects of the medication changes. A couple weeks later, I got a call from a different business manager from a different union saying that he had an employee on the work site who was acting erratically. He was saying he was going to kill himself. He was threatening other individuals on the work site. So I walked him through the process on what to do and to get that individual help. So come to find out, I told him, does he have a weapon? Does he have any types of weapons and stuff like that? Get him in the car and take him to the nearest crisis unit if he's willing to go. If he's not willing to go, then you need to call the cops to do an involuntary hospitalization. Fine. He calls me later that night. There was a gun in the guy's truck that he was able to get out of his truck and put in the safe on the work site, get that person to the crisis center where he was then placed in an inpatient psychiatric unit. If the second situation was dealt with the same way the first situation was, where just go home and take care of yourself, we could have had a fatality on our hands that night. But because this business manager took the extra step to see what was going on with this individual and to get him the help that he needed, he ended up getting the help that he needed rather than ending his life that night. What we know, a person that is considering suicide does not really want to die, they just want to end the unbearable pain. They are often looking for someone to help. Up to 90% of suicidal people speak to at least one person before making a suicide attempt. Before someone dies by suicide, they do talk about it with someone, usually a trusted person in their life. Talk of suicide should be taken seriously every time. Warning signs are present 80% of the time, and they are in place when somebody chooses suicide. The difficulty is in recognizing those warning signs and what they are. Warning signs offer a reason to ask if somebody is okay. Although warning signs are present, a lot of the time, there are often times that they aren't present and a person just goes through with it in silence. There were 48,000 suicide deaths in 2018. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the U.S. among males aged 25 to 54. It is the 4th leading cause of death. In 2019, there were over 1.4 attempted suicides. Suicide deaths have increased over 35% since 1999. The one thing that we're missing in this is that although these numbers are high, they could be a lot higher if you take into account individuals who, although they were an overdose death, we don't know how many of those were intentional versus unintentional overdoses. So we don't know that factor, and unless somebody leaves a note or tells somebody, these numbers could actually be a lot higher. Sometimes we're not aware of the suicide risk in a person until they end their life. A suicide attempt is among the most predictive factors for future suicide risk. Estimates are that for every death, there are 25 to 100 non-fatal suicide attempts for all ages. So what risk factors are present for suicide? Family risk factors, personal behavioral, and environmental and social. Suicide in construction. According to the CDC, more male construction workers take their lives than in any other industry. The report showed that the suicide rate for men in construction were 53 per 100,000. That's 4 times higher than the overall suicide rate. So the risk factors include, which are a lot of what are included with substance use disorder, is competitive and high pressure work environment, higher prevalence of substance use, separation from families, and inconsistent work. Some of the warning signs that are present are ideation. Somebody verbalizes, somebody threatens that they're going to end their life. Substance use, excessive or increased. Feelings of purposelessness, no reason for living, anxiety, agitation, trapped, feeling there's no way out, hopelessness, withdrawal from friends, family, society, uncontrolled anger, rage, seeking revenge, recklessness, risky acts, and mood changes. When to seek help. Mental health problems can develop into mental illness when ongoing symptoms cause frequent stress and affect someone's ability to function. Reaching out for help is important, especially if questions about mental health arise. We get anonymous calls a lot too to ask, hey, I'm working next to this guy. He just doesn't seem right. How can I help him? They won't give us their name or the individual's name, but we're able to walk them through on what questions to ask and provide a contact number to give that individual if they want to call us to get the help that they need. Taking action. Encourage the person to have an evaluation. A lot of times with mental health, inpatient is not always recommended. A lot of times mental health can be treated at an outpatient level. It just depends on what stage you seek the help. If it's to the point where the person is hallucinating or they're having suicidal thoughts or they're acting erratically, oftentimes inpatient is recommended. Mental health is a long-term struggle along with substance use. A person can be in therapy for the rest of their life, which is okay because they're addressing their mental health and they're keeping themselves in recovery by attending that treatment. Learn about mental illness. What we're doing today, we're educating you guys on what the signs and symptoms are, how to help. Just asking if a person is okay can make a world of difference for individuals who are struggling. Receive supportive counseling and be monitored closely for conditions requiring more intensive care. So I touched on that. We not only get calls from members themselves, we get calls from dependents also, regardless of age. And one thing that we have seen an uptick in is dependents, young dependents, like ages 8 to 13, needing acute hospitalization for their mental health. So not only do we assist with the members, we assist with the children also. So the world that's out there today that kids have to grow up in, it's not the same world that it was when I was growing up. I didn't fear going to school because there would be a school shooting that day. My parents didn't fear that I would not come home at night because there was a school shooting. When the world reopened after the pandemic, kids didn't want to go to school for fear of getting sick. They didn't want to go out because of getting sick. Kids are dealing with a lot more stressors than probably each and every one of us in this room had to deal with when we were kids. So we have seen an increase in not only the outpatient, but also the inpatient hospitalization. I had a call from a dependent. She was probably in her early 20s. She had a suicide attempt a couple months prior. She tried to overdose. And, she was actually studying abroad when this happened, so she didn't get the treatment after the suicide attempt, but she was having those feelings again. She was getting to the point where she was having suicidal thoughts. I was able to evaluate. She contracted for safety with me on the phone and went in to wait for her brother to come home to go to the hospital. Kept her on the phone. She had to do something, so she was going to call me back in 5 minutes. Within 4 minutes, I got a call from Mom. Mom was not happy with me. She had just graduated from college. She was applying for jobs at various hospitals. She had her MBA. Her going into the hospital is going to ruin her career, this, that, and the third. What I wanted to say to this mom is, well, if she ends her life, that career won't be there anyway. And until we address what is really going on, and sometimes parents don't want to look at their kids as having a mental illness, the risk that she could have ended her life was there. Unfortunately, she did agree with what her mom was saying. We got her into outpatient services, but that person should have had an evaluation at a hospital for a higher level of care, in my opinion. So oftentimes we have to deal with the stigma that parents put on their children. Nobody wants to have their kids be sick with anything, whether it be physical health, mental health, but getting them the treatment that they need is only going to allow them to continue to thrive in their life. And until we all understand that mental health and substance use is a medical disorder, we're going to continue to play the cat and mouse game with getting individuals the help that they need. Stigma. The stigma behind mental illness often discourages individuals from taking medication. Over the last several decades, there have been significant progress in treatment of and societal views towards behavioral health conditions. A variety of terms are used to describe mental health problems. You don't know what the individual sitting next to you is going through. Whether you talk about individuals who have substance use disorders as junkies, or individual with mental health disorders, or as crazy or psycho, that could tremendously affect that individual sitting next to you. So what I ask, if anything, you just be mindful of the words that we use when we're having simple conversations with individuals. Separating the illness from the person. He's living with bipolar instead of saying he's bipolar. Be compassionate with the person and hard on the illness. It's not the person's fault that they are living with this illness. It's an illness, just like cancer, just like diabetes. We have fundraisers and beef and beers and stuff for individuals with cancer. We don't have that same treatment for individuals with mental health or substance use disorder. They're both at the same level, a medical condition, and should be, I'm not saying that you should have fundraisers and beef and beers, but it should be treated in a sense of having empathy and compassion for that person the same way across the board. Common concerns for union members. I already touched upon this. So for individuals going into treatment, they oftentimes cannot leave the job for long periods of time. So they're oftentimes the primary breadwinner, so they can't leave their family without money to pay the bills. Employees who fail a drug test or come to work under the influence are subject to disciplinary measures. I highly recommend you calling us on a voluntary basis before it becomes a mandatory issue and a failed drug screen comes into play. We have more weight in working with you in what you're looking for than if you're a mandatory referral, because at that point you have to follow every recommendation that we make, rather than us working with you, seeing where you're at. If you can only do 7 days, then step down to a lower level of care, that's fine. But if you're a mandatory referral, you have to follow every treatment recommendation that we make at that point. Requesting treatment before a substance use problem starts to affect one's job performance can spare an employee from potentially serious or negative consequences. Some employees may have concerns about finances according to time away for treatment. Employees that do require more intensive inpatient therapies must consider rehab could greatly improve the quality of life. Untreated mental health conditions or substance use problems could end up costing them their job and impacting their income to a much greater extent than an individual going into rehab for 30 days. Treatment is a potentially life-saving measure that no price tag should deny them of. Other employees may be troubled because they fear the stigma of a rehab stay. Again, an employee has a right to confidentiality. Everyone that calls into our office is protected by confidentiality. If Kim calls me and say, hey, did Joe Smith call you? I cannot tell her that. So you guys are protected under confidentiality when you're calling into our office. Employers cannot broadcast at their company that an employee is away getting addiction treatment or mental health treatment. Okay. So I'm going to give you guys about a 10-minute break just to get up, stretch, and then we'll come back, get the latter part of the training done. It's of what we're going to put in your toolbox to be able to help individuals, and we're going to talk a little bit more about drug screens. All right, so the second part of the training is what's in your toolbox to help. We're going to talk about the Allied Trades Assistance Program, which is your employee assistance program. We're going to talk about our peer advocate program, our building trade support meeting, and Narcan. All right, the Allied Trades. Who are we and what do we do? So the Allied Trades Assistance Program is a nonprofit that has been around for 30 plus years. When Jack Dempsey, our first executive director, founded ATAP, the primary goal was to give members quality treatment while containing costs for the union. What we do is, number one, is provide quality treatment for every one of our members. So regardless if you're calling in for substance use, mental health, we're going to act quickly and get you the providers, whether it be outpatient providers, inpatient providers. We're going to get you the providers that you need right away. The thing with inpatient is that oftentimes members can change their minds within 10 minutes. So when you call into our office and if an individual is seeking inpatient, we'll evaluate, see what they're using, how often, what's going on, and be like, okay, hold on, I'm going to call a treatment provider and I'm going to put a bed on hold for you. We always go, oh, whoa, whoa. I'm not ready to go in right now. I was thinking more towards the end of the week, 2 weeks from now, 30 days from now. So although individuals call with this urge that I need help now, when they realize how quick we can get a bed on hold for inpatient treatment, they back off. I got things to take care of. I got bills to pay. I have to, make sure everything's set up. So we work with people. Although you may say 2 weeks or 30 days, we make routine follow-ups with an individual to make sure that they haven't changed their mind. We're available all the time to get an individual in treatment. The good thing about the Allied Trades Assistance Program is that when you call in at 10 o'clock on a Friday, and if you talk with me, if you call back at 7 o'clock at night and you request to speak with me, you have access to me through our 24-hour support. So if an individual calls at 10 o'clock, I want to go into treatment, but I don't want to go right now. Say at 6:30 at night, they go home and change their mind. Yeah, I want to go in today. If you call our 24-hour support line and say, hey, I want to talk with Mary Ann Wolf. She knows my case. I was speaking with her this morning. They will page me and I will call you right back. That's the good thing. There is only 7 staff persons in our office. So if you call multiple times a day, you're not going to get different people who say, well, I don't know who that person is, but how can I help you? You're going to be able to call through and say, hey, can I talk to Mary Ann? Hey, can I talk to Joe? Can I talk to Heather? Can I talk to Tina? You can always talk to that same person rather than having to tell a story all over again so the person knows your history. So ATAP staff, who we are. When you call, you're always going to get a licensed, certified professional on the phone. Myself, I'm a licensed social worker, and I'm a certified employee assistance professional. Joe has a bachelor's degree and is working towards his certification as an employee assistance professional. We have a lot of degree, licensed, and certified individuals that are well versed in the substance use and mental health world that are going to be able to provide the most accurate treatment to what you're going through. So what we offer offer employee sessions both virtually and face-to-face. We have a 24-hour emergency helpline with direct contact to ATAP staff. We provide telephonic assessments and referrals. A lot of times, this is important because a lot of times individuals don't want to come into our office to do this assessment to get the referrals. So we'll just have a conversation with you on the phone, see what's going on. We'll do that assessment over the telephone. We have provider network relations with telehealth services available, training, education, and consultation, part of what we're doing this morning, critical incident stress debriefing. So this is probably the most, the hardest part of the job is the critical incident stress debriefing, because we're being called to work sites that an accident, a fatality has taken place on, and now we're being called in for an individual, if an individual died by suicide. So we were recently called into one of our locals. One of the apprentices had ended his life through suicide, so we went in and did critical incident stress debriefing to the class. Because it was a small-knit class, they all knew each other, and it was apparent that this individual wasn't there. Again, we hear all the time, we had no idea. He He came to work every day. He came to school every day. He was a great employee. He was a great student. Again, it just emphasizes you don't know what is going on with the person sitting next to you. And we have a high presence on social media. So what to expect when you call? Confidential and safe. Everything that is talked about on the phone with us is confidential, aside from when an individual says they're suicidal or homicidal. Mandated reporting has always been around for licensed and professionals within this field when somebody was suicidal. Several years ago, there was an individual they were college students. A male student went to his counselor on campus and said, "I'm going to kill my girlfriend tonight." Rather than that therapist getting him the help that he needed right then and there, she let him leave. She only told her supervisor, and the supervisor did nothing with that individual. That night, he killed his girlfriend. So this was the Tarasoff law that came into order after that, where it made suicidal and homicidal threats at the same level, where mandated reporters had to report both. So that's how that came into play. So a couple other breaches to confidentiality, when somebody's going to hurt themselves or someone else, if somebody discloses child abuse or elder abuse, if we are subpoenaed or any legal request is served to the professional. I've been in this field for 20 plus years. Thankfully, I've never been subpoenaed to court for anything. So there's two types of EAP referrals, self-referral and mandatory. So I talked about both throughout. The easiest way to work with us is when you are a self-referral, because we can really listen to what's going on and we can work with you where you're at. If an individual calls in and they said they can't go into treatment for a long period of time, we'll work with them and put them to where, yes, you can go in for this period of time, step down to a lower level of care. There's a full continuum of care out there for individuals who have a substance use problem or a mental health disorder. It starts with the highest, which is inpatient treatment. With mental health, it's more of an acute psychiatric hospitalization where it's short term. So if an individual goes into the hospital for an acute psychiatric issue, the hospital is going to treat that acute symptom. They're not going to treat the overall mental health issue. That's going to be more treated on an outpatient level. Then with substance use, you have the detox and rehab, which is more long term. For both disorders, you have then a partial hospital program, which is day programs where the individual goes home at night and sleeps. You have an intensive outpatient program, which is a couple hours of night, and then you go home to sleep. And then general outpatient, which can be lifelong for an individual with either a substance use disorder or a mental health issue. How we get mandatory referrals is when an individual tests positive on a drug screen. If an individual tests positive on a drug screen, we get called from that individual, I tested positive, and at that point you have to follow all the recommendations that we put in place to assure that you're getting the treatment that you need. We can't work with you at that point, I can't really go into inpatient. At that point you have to follow the recommendations, because not only do we have to keep you safe and provide the treatment that you need to go back to work, we have to keep your coworkers safe at that point also. With the positive drug screens, we have heard everything. So just know, if anybody in this room tests positive to a drug screen and you tell us some story, we know that it's not the truth. And in the end, we're going to find out what's going on. A lot of people feel that we put barriers in place. So if you're calling in and you failed a drug screen for marijuana, marijuana does not meet any level of care for substance use treatment. We can put you in outpatient treatment, but it doesn't meet for sometimes the intensive outpatient, partial, or inpatient treatment. So at that time, usually education is recommended, which we have an education program internally that we put people through, provide a letter, and you can go back to work. If an individual calls through and they're using, say, cocaine, meth, opiates, any of the harder substances, we do the same evaluation. We've heard that the urgent care put cocaine in the water cooler, and that's why they tested positive. I have glaucoma. The doctor put methamphetamine in my eye drops, and that's why I tested positive from. That's not going to happen. It's just not possible. So, we work with the individual. We put them in lower levels of care just to end up weeks later having to bump them up to a higher level of care. And you're wasting more time out of work at that point. Because in the end, you still have to follow the recommendations. So if we're wasting time at 2 weeks at an outpatient and then you need a higher level of care, that's 2 weeks plus 30 days. So just know, we're here to help. We're not here to put any barriers in place for individuals going back to work. We're not here to be that, hard person on you. We truly want to help and get you the help that you need so you can continue to work for the union, you can continue to provide for your family, and you can continue to have a lifelong career. If there's any type of accident, display of behaviors of intoxication, increased absenteeism, or productivity issues. I'm going to hand it over to Joe. We're just going to do a quick microphone change, and Sean's going to come up and talk to you guys for 2 seconds.
I just want to share a story, a real life story. 2017, a local 475 member came into my office, and he was big into the bodybuilding, and I assume he was on a lot of steroids. But anyway, he was telling me about fighting with his girlfriend, and showing me some marks on his neck. She hit me here, she did this, and he was worked up, and it was just a bad situation. So I said, well, how about I get you a job down in Delaware? Let you get away for a little bit, let things calm down.
Thank you.
Well, this was on a Wednesday. Friday morning, he ended up in his girlfriend's garage. He shot his girlfriend, killed her, and then he killed himself. All right, so it's something I'll always remember, and it's something real, and it's happening all around us, and and that's what this is all about. So take it all in, learn, and maybe somewhere we could help somebody, all right?
Thank you. So again, my name's Joe Carey. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Peer Advocate program, the Building Trade Support Group, and some of the support services that Allied Trades offers. So the Peer Advocate program was developed in 2017. It was developed as a means to address workforce needs in regards to the opioid epidemic. So the peer advocates are internal liaisons within the workplace. They're not so much there as a therapist, but they're more there as a peer support. They're there to support individuals who are struggling with substance use disorder. They're trained to act as a first responder to support peers until they can connect them with the Employee Assistance Program, which is Allied Trades. They're a support person for individuals returning from treatment, and they're part of the Building Trade Support Group. So once a peer advocate completes the training, they get this yellow hard hat sticker. It's the same QR code that is on your hard hat stickers that I gave out, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So there are requirements to be a peer advocate. We want to make sure that people that we're investing time to train are serious about helping individuals, but that they're also in good standing with the union and that they're going to be committed. So first, they must complete a preventative education, changing the culture of construction, substance use disorder, and mental health awareness training. They must obtain a letter of recommendation from a union official, typically it's a business manager, obtain a letter of support from the signatory contractor, that's a contractor that you're working for, and complete the Peer Advocate Advanced Training Program. So we have these pre-training programs because during the Peer Advocate training, it's a 2-day training, it's 8 hours on substance use, and 8 hours on mental health and suicide awareness. So we do these pre-trainings to make sure that you're not going in blind, that we throw a lot of information at individuals, and sometimes if you're not, if you haven't been working in the field or you don't have any experience with treatment, sometimes that information can be overwhelming. So we have these pre-trainings. So these are some of the topics that we touch on in the peer advocate training. A lot of the stuff Mary Ann talked about or touched on today. So understanding EAPs, understanding addiction, understanding treatment, the importance of Narcan, how to recognize an issue, communication, confidentiality, workplace impact, relapse prevention, and effectiveness of a peer advocate and overall support. So two of the important things on there is one, communication. We want peers that we train to be able to ask hard questions to individuals. Ask them, effectively ask them, what led to your relapse if they were clean and sober? Do you feel like harming yourself? Do you have a plan to harm yourself or anyone else? And sometimes asking those questions can be difficult. And also confidentiality. We want to make sure that peer advocates that are trained to help assist members aren't going back at break time, sitting on a 5-gallon bucket telling everyone's business. We want to make sure that they understand the importance of having that level of trust with their union members so that they can effectively connect them to the employee assistance program. Once that level of confidentiality or trust is broken, it's very hard for individuals to come forward. So who would make a good peer advocate? Someone who is empathetic, someone who is committed to learning and helping others, someone who has experience with addiction and recovery, someone with strong communication skills, someone who is well respected in the workplace, someone who is honest and trustworthy, someone who is not afraid of constructive confrontation, and someone who wants to make a positive difference. And it says constructive confrontation. We don't want individuals who are peer advocates to be belittling an individual when they're coming forward. A lot of times that individual that's coming forward might already feel less than anyway. They might already be belittled at home. They may already be belittled by other coworkers. So we want to make sure that there's constructive confrontation. They can ask difficult questions. They can say, well, I understand that you were in recovery for the last 6 years and you wound up relapsing. What happened? What led to that relapse? Was there anything that you can identify that you weren't doing to be productive in your recovery? So we want peer advocates to be able to have those difficult conversations. So these are some pictures of our peer advocates. The ATAB trained its first group of peer advocates in 2018. Today we have over 50 peer advocates trained as first liaisons on the worksite. Over the years, the training has evolved from a 1-day training concentrating on substance use to a 2-day training with the whole additional mental health and suicide awareness component. Because we found that individuals that were union workers were dealing with mental health and suicide at the same rate, if not greater now, as substance use. And then we also bring in some of our providers to help with the additional training. A lot of times, Mary Ann or myself, we get a call from an individual. We do the assessment, we understand the struggles and what's going on. But when we refer to a provider, the provider's seeing the results of some of these substances. The provider's seeing firsthand some of the situations that this individual may be going through. So we were able to bring in some of the treatment providers to kind of give a first responder's perspective on some of these issues. So the future of peer advocacy. It involves monthly meetings, ongoing education and in-service, introduction to members who recently completed treatment to return to work, part of the building trade support group, and a curriculum expansion. So again, we have 2 providers that we brought in. Every so often, we'll bring a provider in to do a refresher course. So if we find that some of our members are dealing with a specific issue, we'll bring in one of our treatment providers just to do a refresher course, like a 1-hour refresher, just to keep our peers up to date with some of the trends that are going on. So we continue to do this so it's not like, okay, we trained you, go out and help people. We want to make sure that our peer advocates are up to date on the most current trends. Again, the Peer Advocate hard hat sticker, I was a union painter by trade. I'm in recovery myself, so I was on a job site and everyone on the crew that I was working with was drinking and using. And obviously they're going to the bar at break, they're doing their thing at lunchtime, and I happened to walk outside and I saw a guy who I knew that had the Peer Advocate hard hat sticker, and I started talking to him about it. And you know, it wasn't anything like this guy's drinking and getting high. It was just, listen, like I'm in recovery, I'm not sure where to go from here, and I was able to just have like a 15-minute conversation and get that level of support from that individual. And that's how I wound up becoming part of the Peer Advocate program. So support, we have a building trade support group. They meet the third Thursday of every month. We have in person, and then we also keep the Zoom option open as well. So I know for your local up here, it might be a little bit far to travel. So there's the Zoom option as well. If you're someone that's in recovery, you're interested in checking it out. You know, I always post flyers on social media. I have flyers with me today if it's something that you're interested in. But it's a similar to a 12-step meeting in that we talk a lot about substance use and recovery, but we also have a mental health discussion. You know, as a union painter, I couldn't go to my foreman and say, you know, I'm really feeling depressed again. He would say, that's great, paint the wall and go home. You know, like that's kind of how it is. So I was able to get that level of support from individuals in the trades and, you know, kind of break that stigma in talking about mental health. So when I go meet members in treatment, we give them a Peer Advocate phone list. It's a list of the peers that we've trained with their contact information, try to identify a peer that lives in their local or in their area or that is in their local. And then I also give them a flyer for the building trade support. So when we have members in treatment, our treatment providers know when I go out and meet, like, listen, this is the date of the building trade support meeting. Make sure that our members in treatment have the option to Zoom in, and some of the local rehabs are bringing people in person, but the providers that we refer to are giving members the option to Zoom in so they can make that connection with peer advocates. So when they get out, they can put names to faces. So we're going to talk about naloxone, commonly referred to as Narcan. More than 50% of all opioid overdoses occur in the home. Individuals who are overdosed are 6 times more likely to have another overdose. An individual's brain cells begin to die after 6 minutes without oxygen. So know the signs. An overdose can happen when the amount ingested causes suppressed breathing in a way that oxygen cannot reach the vital organs and the body begins to shut down. An overdose can occur anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 full hours after drug use. Signs of an overdose: face is clammy to the touch, has lost color, blue lips and fingertips, non-responsive to their name or a firm sternum rub using knuckles, slower erratic breathing or no breathing at all, deep snoring or gurgling sound, and the heartbeat is slowed or has stopped. It's important to know that, I'll touch on this a little bit deeper, that fentanyl is non-reactive to Narcan. So if an individual is overdosing from fentanyl, tranq is non-reactive to Narcan. If an individual is using fentanyl, they may need more than 1 dose. But if an individual is using tranq and you give them Narcan, you know, they may need more than 1 dose. They may need more critical emergency services. But it's not anyone's job to figure out what that individual is using. If you find someone that's on the job site, unresponsive, administer Narcan. If they're not on any sort of opioid, there's not going to be any adverse side effect, you know. But a lot of times what happens is someone may be using in the porta potty, and then all of a sudden they're found on the 2nd floor of a job site. There's no paraphernalia. There's no way to identify the substances. But always administer the Narcan. If you have Narcan on the job, it should be the second thing you do after calling 911. So naloxone is a non-addictive drug used to treat opiate overdose. It was developed as a way for first responders to give life-saving support before emergency medical professionals arrive. Naloxone works by binding to the opioid receptors like opiate drugs do, and the opiates are then pushed off the receptors, reversing the overdose. Naloxone blocks receptors for 60 to 90 minutes after the initial dose. It's commonly referred to as Narcan or Avzeo. Is everyone familiar with Narcan? So it comes in a package, it's a plunger style, you stick it in the nose, administer, and then you give CPR. Act 139, David's Law, allow first responders, law enforcement, firefighters, and EMS to administer the drug to individuals experiencing an opioid overdose. The Good Samaritan Prohibition Act of 139. Friends, loved ones, and bystanders are encouraged to call 911 in the event of an overdose and stay with the individual until help arrives. Offers certain criminal and civil immunities. The individuals administering the medication are immune from liability in the event of an overdose. Medical help and 911 must be called after administering the medication. So again, if you're going to administer Narcan, you don't give them Narcan and then just walk away, right? Because a lot of times people can come back out of the overdose and now all of a sudden they may be disoriented, they may not know what happened, they may not remember. So it's important to administer the Narcan, do chest compressions, call 911, take a step back and keep visual on the member. Sometimes they wake up, they come to, they can become sick, they become ill, they're definitely going to be agitated in some way. So it's important to give them some space, you know, but never give someone Narcan and walk away. So what you need to know, naloxone may bring about precipitated withdrawal. This is non-life threatening. What I say, someone may become agitated after being given Narcan, they're going to immediately start to feel sick. Naloxone will work if the individual has taken fentanyl or carfentanil, but they may need more than one dose. So again, if they took fentanyl, carfentanil, they're going to need more than one. If they're using tranq, the tranq is going to be non-responsive to Narcan. Naloxone will not work if an individual is experiencing an overdose from any other drug other than an opioid. Naloxone is not harmful if given to an individual who is not experiencing an overdose. There's no downside to giving Narcan. When in doubt, give it. I always talk about this. My brother was a union laborer, died from a heroin overdose. When they found him, he had 4 full tubes of Narcan on him. So he had the Narcan that was there to save his life. Whoever he was with never checked him to see if he had Narcan on him. And when an individual is experiencing an overdose, they cannot administer Narcan to themselves. So it's always important to make sure that if you have it there as an option, always give it. Recovery and wellness. SAMHSA has defined recovery as the process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live self-directed lives, and strive to reach their full potential. So understanding the process of recovery. Recovery is an ongoing process that is individualized. Just like treatment, when we put someone in treatment, their treatment might look different from their friend's treatment or their coworkers or their spouse's treatment. Just like treatment's individualized, so is recovery. People are going to have to do whatever they have to do in order to keep themselves from using drugs or alcohol or to deal with their mental health issues. So treatment is a process of learning to manage symptoms. There's no cure. Relapse is often part of one's recovery journey. So again, when we have peer advocates, we want to make sure that the peer advocates are empathetic to the relapse, not belittling people because they relapsed. Sometimes that relapse often gets the person to making the next necessary change to be successful. So recovery. Aftercare, ongoing 12-step involvement in activities that promote overall wellness is the key to increasing the likelihood that treatment will lead to a lasting recovery. Recovery, including meaningful roles in social life, school, and work, are possible. This is especially true for individuals who begin treatment early and play a strong role within their own recovery process. So the big portion of the public health model is support. And that's usually where most of the public health model falls off, is individuals, they have treatment, they have ways to access treatment, but the support after treatment is usually not there. What we've seen is that individuals might be going back to the job site to work with the same group of individuals that they were drinking and using with. They might go to, the same group of people that aren't really conducive or understanding of mental health recovery. So having that support, not just in 12-step involvement in the building trade support group, but having whatever type of support is essential in order for someone in recovery to be successful long term. So early engagement in treatment and support are crucial to improving outcomes and increasing one's chances of recovery. The early engagement is if you feel like you're going through something, or you're not really sure how to identify it, reach out to Mary Ann, to myself, to one of the other individuals in our office before the problems get worse, before the problems become more complex. Because a lot of times the lie about addiction or mental health is, well, I'll get the help when work slows down. I'll get the help, when something bad happens. But a lot of times the issues are more complex. Now it's going to require more complex treatment, longer treatment, maybe more stringent treatment. So the earlier that you get ahead of the issues, the easier it's going to be to acclimate into recovery. So recovery is a personal journey with the goals of hope, empowerment, and autonomy. So we're going to give some time for questions, any sort of feedback, but this is our contact information. So I encourage everyone in here, take your cell phone out, take a picture of this. This might not be something that you need right now, but you might be on a job site. Maybe you're going to be running work one day, and someone comes forward and they say, listen, I'm going through this. Can you point me in the right direction? You might have a spouse that needs some of this contact information. You might have kids that need this. So take it, because it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And then we'll allow, if anyone has any questions or... No questions?
About the peer advocate group,
Mhm.
is that anybody in the construction field can, as long as you get the letters of recommendation, apply for it, or is there any other?
Yeah, so you don't have to be in recovery. We offer the peer advocate program to all the locals that we oversee that are under contract with Allied Trades. So if you're interested, I have information. I could definitely give that to you.
Great.
Anyone else? All right.
Anybody have any questions? Come on, don't be shy.
Give them a test.
Oh, the 10-question test. No. Thank you guys so much
All right.
for being a wonderful audience and allowing us to come this morning.
All right. If anyone needs any resources, we'll be up here. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about the surety fund. I'm not using the mic anymore. Can you hear me? Nobody else was using it. I figured I don't need one. So we have Mike Walsh and Joan Check from Empower. They're going to talk to you. But just to bring you up to speed on some things. I mean, the annuity fund probably came around in the 70s, all right? And it's always been at 10%, of our base wage. It's my goal, and something I'm proud of it. I keep continuing. Now it's up to 16%. It's my goal to get it to 20%, right? But right now, everybody in this room, in your health and welfare, you're getting paid a journeyman rate into your health and welfare plan, which is just say like 16 something an hour, 16.50 an hour, right? You're all making first year apprentice, 5th year apprentice, goes into health and welfare. Of that, 7.5% goes into your personal fund. So there's money being set aside in that fund too. All right? Now, when that fund reaches $40,000, you'll have that for health care and things you could utilize for that. Once it hits 40,000, that money now transfers and will be put into your surety fund as well. All right? So a first-year apprentice now, if he comes out of his time and he works 2,000 hours, he's going to have right around that 40,000. So when he comes out of his time and he's getting those big bumps and increases, his surety fund is going to be up high too. All right? And I'm sure there's people in the local, all right, not this guy, who has $1 million in their surety fund. So you may look now, or you don't pay attention, or you're not doing, this is what this is about. Get your investments, maximize your money, all right? Try not to touch it if you don't have to, because it's going to keep growing, multiplying, right? And you're going to have a hell of a retirement, all right? There's no reason everybody can't have $1 million when you retire. And when you think about retirement, you say you have $1 million there, that's great, but you also have a pension plan, right? Not too many people have that anymore. Everybody's got their 401ks. If you know anybody, you know, somebody works in an office building, whatever, they go to work, they got a 401k. They don't have a pension. I mean, your annuity, your surety, that is another pension. So you're going to have a big pension there. You have a very nice pension through the local, and then you'll have Social Security. All right? Our retirees, when I talk to them, guy, and we're going to have one talk later, he's got a beautiful house in Hunterdon County, beautiful house down in Florida, a big boat, all right? You have great opportunity. And it's my goal to make sure that keeps going and gets stronger for all you guys, all right? So I'm going to turn it over. Mike Walsh with Empower. So listen up, pay attention, and make some money.
Thanks, Sean. Thank you, sir. Wow, I think Empower should hire Sean there. He kind of covered the surety plan really, really well. Good morning or good afternoon to everyone. Appreciate your time here today. I'm going to have an opportunity to talk to you folks about another fantastic benefit that Sean kind of outlined, the surety plan. It's just an amazing tool that you guys have to help you kind of prepare for retirement and build a terrific nest egg over the years. So once Joan comes up here, we're going to talk a little bit about the plan. We're going to talk a little bit about the investment options in the plan, and what abilities you folks have to actually move money around within the plan to make sure that you're allocated appropriately, because that's what's really key. Retirement, it's going to come quicker than you think. I see all you guys are young in here, right? So this is really, really important, because most folks just kind of put it off to the side. They don't think about it till it's 10 years before retirement, right? And you need to start right now. Day one, you need to look at it, have a look at your account, make sure you're allocated appropriately, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Because before you know it, it is going to be 5 or 10 years before you're going to retire, and you're going to really want to make sure you have a nice nest egg in there. As Sean mentioned, there's a few guys in this plan that are millionaires, and he's right. Over a 25, 30-year career, there's no reason why you can't either work in all the hours and the great benefits and the bargaining agreement that's put together by the trustees. So I'm going to hand it over to Joan, because we need to talk specifically more about the plan and the importance of allocating appropriately. So please just ask some questions as we go through the presentation, but it's vitally important. Please pay 100% attention to it, because it could impact when you retire, right? You can retire earlier if you do a much better job at allocating, throughout your career. So I'll hand it over to Joan, and we'll get right into the plan specifics. So thank you, folks. Joan.
Super, thank you. Okay, my name is Joan Check, and I am the retirement plan advisor to your fund. And today, how's everybody doing? Everybody okay? Good that you're inside where it's nice and cool. Anyway, I just wanted to get started with and welcome you to the plan overview. And today we're going to be talking about your plan. And here today, what I'm hoping that you'll walk away knowing or having a better understanding of today, and I'm going to explain where your retirement income can come from. I'm going to introduce you to Empower, and I'm going to talk about the benefits of the savings in your plan. But then I'm also going to talk to you about investing, and then finally how you can register to see your plan. So first, just a little bit about Empower. Empower is the second largest retirement services company in the country, and we're committed to helping people live for today while they're saving for tomorrow, because we believe in retirement and helping people achieve the future they imagine. Empower's goal is to help you replace for life the income you made while working. And we're here to help you plan for that retirement that you imagine, to give you a better view of your retirement income picture, to help you reach your financial goals. And we offer ongoing support and guidance and provide recommendations at no extra cost to you. So I'm going to start by asking you to think what your retirement will look like, to imagine it. What do you see? Do you see yourself traveling to places that you've always wanted to visit? Are you going to want to spend more time with family and friends? Or do you think that maybe you're going to, like that other fellow that Sean was talking about, that you're going to split time between two different homes or even more? Will you enjoy quiet time? Or perhaps you're going to fill your calendar with social events. And the reason I ask this is because I want you to think about how you will live in retirement, because this is going to help you to determine how much you're going to need to retire. And like Sean said, it seems a long ways off, but it will be here before you know it. Time goes fast. So retirement income, where is it going to come from? And are you going to have enough to live that retirement life that you imagine? So how much is it going to take? It's a real big question. Are you going to need 500,000? Are you going to need $1 million or more? Everybody's different. And many financial advisors are going to recommend that you replace 70 to 90% of pre-retirement income, annual income, of course, in order to maintain your standard of living that you're accustomed to. Where is it coming, this 70 to 90%? Potentially, you'll have it coming from a variety of places. Common sources, Social Security, pensions and retirement plans. Sean talked about some retirement plans that you guys have. Also, if somebody has individual retirement accounts and so on, it might be income from assets, such as dividends, income from trusts, estates, rental income, royalty, and income from earnings, which might be that you're going to have a side job or you're going to have some other type of self-employment. Some will even potentially have veterans benefits. But at any rate, Social Security is probably not going to be enough to reach that 70 to 90% recommendation. So you're going to need additional sources. And as Sean had said, an Empower retirement account is created for you after the first dollar is contributed on your behalf by your employer. You don't write a check, you don't have to move money around by yourself. Money is contributed to your account per hours worked. The amount contributed is based on your collective bargaining agreement, and you are 100% vested automatically. The money is yours to invest based on your retirement goals. Compound earnings. With this slide that's up there, The suggestion is that at a 6% rate of return, that in 12 years you could double your money. Or triple in 19 years. It's math. It adds up to this. While it's not unreasonable to think that you can double and triple your assets in this time, this illustrates the power of compound earnings and how it could potentially impact the dollars for your retirement. Next, we're going to cover investing in retirement accounts and talk about how different investment strategies may impact how your savings may grow. Understanding the language, it'll help you become a smarter investor. The terminology and principles of investing, how everything works together, it may help to set you up for success. So whether it is that you want to manage your own investments or you simply want a better understanding of the terminology and principles of investing and how they all work together, here are some terms that are good to know and that you'll hear. I talk about them all the time when I meet with members. Asset classes. An asset class is a group of similar types of investments, such as stocks, which are a share of ownership in a company. Bonds, which pay you a specified rate of interest on money that is loaned to an entity of some kind. Cash alternatives, like money market funds, money market deposits, and stable value products. Asset allocation is simply choosing how to invest in each asset class when you create your portfolio. Diversification is mixing your investments among the different asset classes or within an asset class. And rebalancing, that's adjusting your asset class to align with your evolving investment strategy, such as being more aggressive or even more conservative. Anybody glazing over yet? I know sometimes I see that look on people, it's like, okay, they're gone. But anyway, let me just move on. Mutual funds. Retirement plans are typically offering mutual funds as an investment option. So let's just understand, take a look at how they do work. They're basically investment options that pool money together to invest in stocks, bonds, or other securities. They're owned by a group of investors and managed by a professional investment company to meet a specified financial goal. And I like it that they have eggs here because we know what that means. Don't put your eggs all in one basket. Okay, the diversification. It's hinting. Stock funds. So what are stock funds? Investing in a stock fund, it's not the same as when you buy an individual stock, in that when you invest in a stock fund, you're investing in a variety of stocks that make up a portfolio. They're classed also by size, and that would be large cap, medium cap, small cap. They're also going to be classed by style, growth, value, or blend, or even country, domestic, international. They're generally typically associated with potential long-term growth, and one risk associated with stock funds is market volatility, or the possibility for the investor to experience losses due to factors that affect the overall performance of the financial markets. I often have people that will ask me, is the stock market going to go up or down? And I say yes. And then I'm quiet. So anyway, bond funds. Bond funds are debt obligations of governments or corporations. The borrower promises to pay interest at a stated rate and return the borrowed amount by a maturity date. Bond funds seek to provide interest income and are therefore subject to interest rate and credit risk. The underlying bonds, they could be short, medium, or long-term in nature, and the credit quality refers to the underlying quality of the bonds that the fund is investing in. The risks associated with bonds, again, they include interest rate fluctuations and credit risks. Oh, my favorites, donuts. Okay. Cash alternatives. They're relatively low risk investments. They focus on cash and liquidity, and typically they have low volatility and provide liquidity through short-term loans. The objective of the cash alternative fund is to provide capital while seeking to provide steady returns. These funds, I thought it was coming to get me. These funds are subject to inflation risk as well as interest rate and credit risk. But we heard that before. You know, there's going to be a test afterwards, right? Just kidding. Okay. So, risk, tolerance. How much risk should I take? But let's take a look at risk tolerance and age. If somebody's 25 years old, they've got more time on their side to recover from swings in the market. Someone, therefore, who's closer to the retirement age is probably going to be more conservative because they don't have that much more time for recovery from market conditions, should they be volatile. Does that make sense? Okay. And your investing style. We need to figure out, or you need to figure out, what kind of investor that you are, because knowing your investment style is going to help determine how you want to manage your investments in your plan. And again, when it first starts, well, there's not a whole lot in there, essentially, but by the time it starts growing, and if you are at the point where you're close to retirement, hopefully you've got a plan and you're really paying attention to it. And I mean the plan of action of how you're going to invest. You want to have an asset allocation. So there's the help me do it investor, and there's the do it myself investor. And what's the difference? Well, if you're more comfortable leaving the investing to professionals because you don't feel that you've got that knowledge or the time even to manage your investments yourself, you may consider some options such as target date funds. And those are the target date there is the expected retirement date and the risk tolerance associated with that. And you can also, additionally, if you want a little bit of help, and that would be work with Empower's team of specially trained associates to help you. That's me too. But if you're a do-it-myself investor, you may want to apply investing principles to build your own portfolio with the funds that are available as part of your plan. I see one person snoring over there. Just kidding. Everybody's looking. Where was he? Okay, so with the Help Me Do It investor, a specially trained consultant can help you to review, and that would be perhaps help you set up a strategy. And additionally, these licensed consultants are going to act in your best interest to provide recommendations at no additional cost. They can talk to you about investing options in your plan and financial wellness tips, and even rolling assets into the plan. For the do-it-yourself investor, you may decide that building your own portfolio is the best course for you. And in that case, you can choose from the individual core funds that are included as part of your plan to create a diversified mix of investments. So does that mean that you're going to choose more than one?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So you're going to create a diversified mix of investments to match your tolerance risk. Using this approach, you get to select your own mix of individual funds, decide how much you're going to invest in each fund, and manage and monitor your account accordingly. And that's very important, because if you set up a allocation over time, it may get off track. And what do I mean by that? Well, for instance, one part might grow a whole lot larger, and so instead of having, say, 30% in a certain asset class, now that's 50%. Well, that means that probably quite a while ago, it should have been rebalanced, brought back into the asset allocation part, the way you had designed your plan, or that you'd been helped to design your plan. And that's why taking a look at your account periodically, very important. And even when you hear that the market is down, okay? Over the years, too many people have told me, oh, I don't even look at it right now. That's like, wrong answer. I would walk into a classroom and I'd say, raise your hand if you opened up your statement. And then I'd look, and the teachers would look at each other. But it's very important to stay on track and make adjustments, rebalance. Don't ignore, tend it. And why do we want to have that diversified portfolio? Simply because investments react differently in any given economic situation. An example would be perhaps that in one economic situation, one investment might do really well and another one may be doing kind of poorly. So when that economic situation changes, it may be the reverse, where the one that was not so great now is moving ahead and the other one is lagging behind. It's virtually impossible to know which investment's going to do better in the future than another one. And with that, you really, rather than guessing how to invest or trying to even time the market, you need to be diversified. And that means owning investments in more than one asset class. And we remember that was large, small, okay, cap stocks, funds. And of course, we had bond funds in there and other ones. And then you have, of course, you have growth, you have value, you have blends, just to, bring back some of the things we said before, and international. And diversification, it's not going to assure that you're going to have a profit or protect against the loss of your principal, but it may help to reduce overall volatility in the markets and help you to manage the overall risk inside of your portfolio. That's the key piece. Diversification to help manage risk. So what are your investing options? There's so many ways to build a portfolio, and the goal is to find the way that best suits you. Your employer, plan sponsor, and committee work together to make sure the investment options offered by the plan are in your best interest. There are 16 core funds and 6 target date funds. And the next slide. These are the core funds that are available for you. Those are the 18. And some of you may or may not recognize the names. But it says what type of funds they are, so you can gather the different varieties there.
Can I just jump in for a second?
Sure.
Can we just go back to that last
Absolutely.
slide for a second?
Thank you. So I just want to make sure that we chat a little bit more in depth about the investment options that we have in the plan. But before I do that, just really quick, how many folks out here have taken a look at their account?
Love
So a
it.
pretty good amount. Okay. So there's some of you here who haven't, right? Okay. Has anyone here made any type of investment changes? Okay, so, all right, so we got some savvy guys in the room.
That's cool.
Okay, so that's good. That's good. So
I
for those.
would have said, who hasn't? That's just me.
So for those folks in the room who haven't, you're probably wondering, gosh, where's my money right now, right? So as Joan had said, there's an array of investment options that you can choose from. And they go from being a stable value product where you get a set interest rate for a quarterly period that adjusts every 3 months, and that's this SAGIC diversified bond. It's the fixed stable value fund that's in the plan. But we have funds that range from a stable value fund like that all up to very high risk investment options that are really trying to go out and bang and get you the return for your buck, right? And as Joan said before, the younger you are, the more aggressive of investor you should be, right? Because you can deal with all the ups and downs in the market, right? So if you have 95% of your portfolio in those higher risk investment options, about 5 years before you're going to retire, that is extremely risky. Because what could happen is, like 2022 was not a great year for investing. It wasn't. The market was down across the the whole 4 quarters of the year. So somebody who's going to set to retire, if they were sitting down and I'm going to retire in 2 years, and they have 95% in those high equity, high risk investment options, they might not be retiring because of 2022, right? So again, the younger you are, the more risky you should be. As you get closer to retirement, you should be less risky, not completely in a stable value product, but you're going to be about 50-50 your allocation when you retire. So 50% in a safer investment option, 50% in a risky option that's going to try and get you a little bit of money back. So that's what I really wanted to talk about here when we get to the next slide, but hang on before you do that. So again, we have the SAGIC diversified. It's a stable value fund. Some people don't want to risk anything at all, okay? So that's the fund if you didn't want to risk anything at all. Nobody would recommend that to any, you guys are all young in here, nobody would recommend that you put all your money in that fund.
Right.
Because over your next 30-year career,
You have inflation
you're gonna,
risk.
right, you're gonna leave a lot of earnings on the table by being in that investment option. But somebody that's 70 and they're retired, it might be the perfect fit for them, right? They're just drawing down on it with the monthly payment and paying their bills that way. So you can see there's a whole list of investment options here. These investment options are vetted thoroughly by Empower, vetted thoroughly by the trustees, and there's an advisor consultant that takes a look at these investment options. We all get together and we meet, and we make sure that these managers that are managing these funds are doing the job that they're supposed to do. So at some time, you may see an investment option get taken out of the plan, a different one get put in. That's just the trustees making sure that the investment options in the plan are good for you guys, right? That's ultimately what it's for. Now, again, for those individuals that have never looked at their account, if we can just go to the next slide, please.
Sure.
We have target date investment options, okay? There are 6 of them, ranging from the 2010 fund to the 2060 fund. So for anyone, actually all of you, when your account initially started, that first time we got that contribution after you guys worked your first hour, right? We get a contribution that filters through the fund office, it comes into us, we set your account up, got your name, your address, and we'll get to that, how you can take a look at that a little later. But those funds come in and they get allocated to the target date investment options that's nearest to the age that you're going to turn 62, right? So money comes in, we allocate it, that's what it's invested. So you may be wondering, okay, what does that exactly mean? So in looking at these investment options, remember I said someone who's younger, you should be more aggressive, right? So if somebody started now and they were 25 years old, you're probably going to be in the 2060 fund based on your date of birth, right? Okay, what does that mean? Does that mean I can't touch the money until 2060? Doesn't mean that at all. It's just a target date of the year on about when you're going to retire. So as your contributions go into that fund for the next 15 years, 95 to 97% of those contributions are going to be invested in higher risk investment options within that fund. The money managers are going to try and go out and get you a bang for your buck and try and make as much money on that as you can. When you're about 15 to 18 years to retirement, if you remain in that investment option, it's going to slowly trickle down
And the money manager does this for you. You guys don't have to do anything if you're in that investment option. The money managers handle all of it for you. But they're looking, okay, this person's gonna retire around the year 2060, so we gotta start taking some out of that equity and putting it into the safer investment options. And it ratchets down. So every year, the money manager will take a little bit of your money, move it out of the higher risk, put it in the safer investment option, and that's gonna protect you from like a down market, right? That's gonna continue up until you retire. So at the time of your retirement, 2060, you're gonna be about 55-45, I'm sorry. 55 invested in the higher risk, 45 invested in the safer investment option. And then that's even gonna continue as you continue to work as well. So again, the money managers take care of it. These funds are known as set it and forget it type investment options. Your money comes in, it goes into it, money managers take care of it. It's for the person that, doesn't want to look at the stock market all day. I mean, who's been on CNN Money, right? There's 55 tickers flying over that screen. It's very complicated stuff, right? I do this for a living, and I don't put that channel on. There's just too much to follow. So that's why these funds are put in place for somebody who doesn't want to do that, but they want to make sure that they're allocated appropriately. They want to make money, they want to gain the interest, but they want someone else to manage it for them. And that's what these money managers do with these targeted investment options. So the 2060 or 2050, that has nothing to do with taking your money at all. It's just the year that's closest to the year that you're going to turn the age 62, and it's ensuring that you're allocated appropriately within that investment option. Okay? I'm going to pause there to see if there's any questions. I know I covered a lot that way.
Mike, could you please expand on like stable value, interest rates, like a person who wants to be in a very,
Safe.
Safe investment option?
Safe investment, how they are earning interest, how that interest rate does fluctuate, and what is it?
Yeah, absolutely. So 3.65, the interest rate on the SAGIC investment option, it changes on a quarterly basis, a calendar quarter, so the first of the year, April 1st, July 1st, October 1st. So that fluctuates with how the market is doing, right? So each quarter it will adjust, it's announced, and you'll see it on your account on the website. It could go up, it could go down. It kind of depends on how the market is going, right? So we've had a couple, I think right after the plan came on with Mass Mutual at the time, which I was part of, and now obviously we're Empower, we had a couple years there with the rate was going down through the kind of pandemic, but now it's kind of on the rise again, and we're up about I think it's 3.65 if I looked. Thank you. 3.65%. So again, your money goes in that, it's a stable value product. That's what you're going to get, is that rate. So you can't lose money in that product, okay? But if let's say the rate for the full year remain the same, so January 1st, let's say the rate comes in at 4%. It stays 4% for the first quarter, the second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. If you had $100,000 in that account on January 1st and you put no other contributions in it, that was just your balance on January 1st, the whole year it got 4% interest, your balance on 12/31 would be $104,000. Okay? So that's how the stable value product works. Again, it does fluctuate. It could go up, it could go down, but you're going to get the return that the rate is set at for the period. Any questions on the stable value product? Sean, is there anything I left off the table there?
One thing I would just add that I remember from past seminars that as far as when you guys are so young and you have all these years and the highs and lows of the stock market, it always stood out to me. They always said, no matter how bad the stock market did, right, history
Yep.
has always come back fast,
Mhm.
right? So the crash of 1929, depression, I mean, the stock market, everything went, eventually it comes back higher. So that's why you guys have the years to absorb that.
That's a great point. I mean, he's talking about 1929. Let's go back to just 2008. I mean, some of you were probably in diapers at that time, but 2008 we had the big housing market crash, right? And the stock market just went kaput.
Everything
Right?
was down.
Everything was down. I mean, people lost their homes, businesses closed. But if you fast forward 10 years to 2018, the market doubled from what it was before the crash happened, right? So Sean is absolutely right, and I've always looked at the market that way as well. It's like if it got to some certain point and it goes back down, it's gonna get back to that. And I think it's gonna get back to it and go above it. The thing we don't know is the timing that that's gonna take. That's why it's important to make sure you're allocated appropriately, right? So you guys are young. So if you got money in that fund now and the market kind of takes a put, don't worry about it. Don't, stop working and go, oh my God, I have to go move money around because the market's kind of tanking. You don't want to do that. You
Right.
absolutely don't want to do that.
And I want to add
because-
something to that also, Mike. And very simply, when you have a good asset allocation and the market goes down, that's the day for you, it's on sale. You're buying more units, because that's how mutual funds are, at a cheaper price, and then as things recover, it pops. So, I mean, who doesn't like things that are on sale? Consequently, though, and the opposite would be the situation where you have somebody who's just a few years out from retirement. Well, they hopefully are already in something a little bit more conservative. But I would say when you're young, the worst thing potentially would be if you're in an asset allocation to switch it to something super safe. And for instance, the value of $1 since 1980 up until the year 2020, 40 years, lost 69% of its purchasing power. So that's the argument against being too safe.
Yep, absolutely. Again, it's all about allocation. That's the important part we want to get across to you guys today, right? And that example I said, 2008 to 2018. If you're 25 years old in 2008 and the market kind of tanked, right? Oh, what are we going to do? Don't panic. Don't move your money. But over the next, as that's building back up, you're buying shares at cheaper than what it was before 2008. And then boom, look, 2018, we were doubled back, right? So you don't want to panic in those situations. That's the target date funds again as well, right? A good kind of story I've heard is, people that are at work, this guy's in a target date fund, this guy's got all his money in a high risk investment option, and the market starts tanking. Well, this guy's just, I'm okay because I'm in a target date fund. I know it's going to be okay. But this guy's, he's panicking. He goes and makes a silly move and moves everything out of the market that he had. And he's selling off his shares of the mutual fund at a lower cost. So he's kind of locking in that loss, right? So when you look at your statement, when you look at your account online, the balance is there, but it's a balance. It's really just on paper, right? It's when you start moving the funds around, like if you took everything out of a high equity fund and put it into a stable value fund, that's a little bit more of a stagnant number, a number that's going to remain because it's just getting that lower interest rate that's for the period, right? So allocation is really important. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. We're going to talk about how you can take a look at your account as well. But I just wanted to make sure you understood how the target date investment options work. And know that if you're someone in this room that doesn't want to pay attention, doesn't want to learn about the stock market, know that the trustees, by picking these target date investment options, put you guys in a great place because you're allocated appropriately to where the professionals who handle the money believe that you should be. So you're all in good shape. So there's no reason for anyone to panic, but we'll get a little bit more of the presentation on here and talk about the website and access as well. So sorry, Joan. Thank
That's
you.
okay. Thank you, Mike. Okay, so just to repeat what Mike said.
Yeah, we kind of went through that, so.
Oh, he stole the show there. But anyway, target date funds, like Mike said, that's a diversified group of investments. And as a person is getting closer to their target date, the age when you retire, they're going to automatically become more conservative because that's what their fund manager is doing for you. So they'll have a mixture of equities and bonds and fixed stuff, safer stuff, and that percentage of the safer stuff grows. They actually call that process a glide path. And well, I think we heard a lot about that from Mike, so let me just go through this. Okay, registering. I know a lot of you said that you raised your hands, you've already registered. This is what it looks like on your computer, empowermyretirement.com. You'd need to click the register button, follow those system instructions, or anything that maybe was given to you by your employer, and start to learn about your account. You also have the opportunity to see where your retirement savings are just on your cell phone. Who has it? Who has the app on their phone?
I'm trying to figure out how to get it, how to log into it.
Ah, it can be a little tricky. Do you have Android or Apple? Okay, the Apple.
Did you register online yet? Did you create a login and password? Oh, you haven't? Okay. Well, it's really kind of a similar process. I think you have a slide there, right?
I'm not sure. I think we just did that one.
So did you download the app, sir?
No.
Okay, so if you click in.
This
you
shows
have
the
the
two
option to
stores.
register.
And it says, if you have a PIN, if you don't have a PIN, or have an enrollment.
Oh, he's at the opening menu.
Yeah, I don't
You
have a
don't, you
PIN.
do not have a PIN.
I'm sorry?
Putting that information in, nothing's coming up.
You're putting in your information, it's not coming up?
Coming up on the app.
All right, we could stop, I could
After-
talk to
maybe
you
after the
afterwards.
meeting.
Afterwards.
Yeah.
Anybody else have issues getting logged onto the app? Personally, I would recommend if you can do it on a laptop
First.
first, I would recommend that you do it that way. It is the same login and password that you create on your laptop that will get you into the mobile app as well. So there's not two different passwords, there's two-step authentication. Security is a really important factor with Empower, so we gotta make sure that your information is safe and protected. So you're gonna have to go through the two-step authentication process, which, I think you pretty much have to do that if you have a bank account as well, right? Everyone kind of requires that anymore. But I do recommend signing on to the website on your laptop first, and then checking on the mobile app. And I can have a chat with you, sir. We can take a look after the meeting as well.
Okay, good. All right. So when you are logged in, you'll be able to see where your savings, where your dollars are and where they stand. You'll see the total account balance, and there's even going to be a monthly projection of what income might be in retirement, and if you're on track to reach that goal. There's a lot, the website is very robust. There's a lot of things there. You can get a full picture of your retirement, even if you decide that you're going to add outside assets to your profile. That doesn't mean you're moving them here. It just means you're filling out a profile of, I've got this over here and that in an IRA account, from maybe previous work. So it's going to give you a much more accurate picture of your retirement dollars. And what you do is you click on where it says Other Assets after you have logged in. My financial path, and this is part of what I mean when I say it's pretty robust, because there's help out there on the website, ideas, and whether you're looking for some help maybe with some student loans or wondering how you should spend the next dollar, helpful tools, calculators, there's some under the other part, for instance, there's something called the Next Step Evaluator, and it offers personalized, actionable solutions based on answers of yes and no to certain questions. It's fast, it's easy, and you may find it's helpful. It's important to explore. There are additional calculators that might help you looking at other aspects of your financial life, whether it's paying off debt. There's a debt reduction, a debt payoff calculator, a mortgage refinancing calculator, and even a life insurance calculator, to name a few. And all you have to do is click on My Financial Path after you have logged into your account. Has anybody tried that yet?
There's some great
No.
tools out there. There's a budgeting tool that you can take a look at as well. It's all trying to help you kind of take a big picture of your financial current situation, and it kind of helps project what it might look like at your time of retirement. So there are a lot of great tools.
Financial wellness.
Yep, I do urge you guys to kind of take a look at that. It could help you putting together a monthly budget to help pay off your bills. I currently use
the budgeting tool myself that I have, everything listed that I pay every month. It's an own personal thing. It has nothing really to do with the investment of the account, but it's just tools out there to kind of help you guys understand the whole financial world that's out there. Okay? Sorry.
No worries. More is better. Okay. So anyway, what is Empower going to do for you? We're going to help to give you guidance throughout your financial journey, and we're committed to help you achieve your financial goals, whether you're just getting started or, well, all of you, you're just getting started, but we'll stay connected with you. And even if that just means that we're helping you with beneficiary designations. And that's a good question. Those who have been onto the website, have you gone to the section about the?
Yeah, their paper.
Oh, they do paper? Okay, well, have you gotten the paper? Have you done your beneficiary designations on paper? Who has?
Yeah, that's important too, right?
Okay, so there's a weakness there that you are gonna wanna take care of. Okay.
Yes. Please make sure you get a.
Yeah, you wanna know if you die, who gets it? Simple. All right?
Important stuff.
Yeah, because even if you don't have a will, state of New Jersey has one for you. So, again, depending upon the communication preferences that you have or reaching out, we may reach out to you at key milestone ages, providing personalized guidance along the way. We may also communicate with you to help you to stay on track and manage those financial goals. And that's the most important thing, staying connected. And that's how we are going to help you with your progress on individual goals. We have information, tools, and resources to help you achieve them. And we provide numerous resources to help you plan for today and plan for your future. And again, you can look at the website, use that to help you have a complete financial picture in one place where you can use it, creating a personalized dashboard, a single place where you'll have a real-time view. You'll be able to see spending, savings, debt, and more than that. So we're always going to try to be in touch, reach out to you, and based on the tools and resources you use and your communication preferences, you may receive emails, app messages, text messages, or even a call from an Empower representative. And this approach creates one-to-one experience based on your needs, the savings, the investment choices that you've made regarding your retirement strategy. Important number, if you need us, the 800-659-2433. We have some flyers over there, and I have some business cards that you'll be able to take with you also. But weekdays from 8 to 10 p.m., Saturday 9 to 5:30, that's for dialing that 800 number. Dedicated Taft-Hartley representatives are available for you to speak with. There's also an automated system 24/7, but you'll need a password for that. And I would assume that's going to be, Mike, the password from the individual's account?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's great about we have dedicated Taft-Hartley phone representatives. So when you call, you're talking to someone who understands that you work in a union, you're a member. So they understand the kind of lingo and the language and understand how Taft-Hartley plans work. And those Saturday hours that we have there, we actually put those in play for our Taft-Hartley plans. Because you guys are in the field mostly during the week, right? So if you're working, although our phone center is open till 10 p.m. Eastern during the night, you get home from work, you're tired, some folks want to make the phone call on a weekend, so now you can do that. So it's a great opportunity for you to make a call from the comfort of your own home. You're not in the car driving home or where you might be to kind of make that call. And another important option is Joan can help. If you guys want a review of your account, it's just you and her chatting about the account and taking a look at it. She's available to help you with that. okay? I urge you to take one of these flyers. We have them up here along with your business card as well. I don't want to steal any of your thunder on that, Joan, I'm sorry, but
I'm just gonna take a nap. That's all.
that's a great option that you folks have as well. Hopefully if you have questions, you'll ask us here today. Some folks don't like to ask a question in this setting, but that's fine. Just know that there's help out there for you.
Yeah.
And again, if it's something you don't want to look at, you don't want to pay attention to, know that you're in a target date fund, so you're allocated appropriately to where you're at in your age. Okay? Any questions on that? Yes, sir.
You keep saying that we're young and like we have time, but what's like a general rule of thumb as to when you want to start being more conservative? How many years before retirement?
It's in that 15 to 20 year range before,
I mean,
like
years of service? 15 to 20 years in, start paying attention?
15 to 20 before you retire.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so if you're gonna retire, let's just say you're targeting 65. So around 48, 50, you'll wanna kinda take a look at it, right? So like I said, if you were in the target date investment option and you were in the 2060 fund, right? It's actually like 18 or 19 years before you retire that they're gonna start moving a little bit out every year. And it's like a percent. It's not a ton that they move out, but that's gonna ratchet down as you get closer. But you should really start paying attention to your retirement, no kidding, today.
Yeah.
You know, just to make sure that, because it could make a huge difference, right? If you went out and just put your money in the stable value fund, which is great, I mean, yeah, you can make interest on it. You're never gonna have a down statement or a down day because it's a rate that gets set. You're kind of leaving a lot on the table over your entire career, and it can make a drastic difference. There's also a calculator out there on the website that you can take a look at and kind of estimate, like if you put X amount of dollars came in for you throughout a year, you can assume what is that at 6%, what is that at 5% over the lifetime of 30 years. It'll give you an idea what it's going to look like. So it helps you plan for it. Really important stuff.
Thank you.
There is no silly questions here today, guys.
No.
So please ask any question that you may
I
have.
see a question over there.
Is Empower considering any access to the digital asset class in the near future, or no? Is that not on the table?
The
Like
Bitcoin?
like spot index ETFs, Ethereum, any kind of like digital asset class thing?
I can say right now or not. I can't really say for what could occur in the future, but right now, no. How about some more questions, guys? Yes?
So you're saying if you're in like one of those target date funds, and then, like, if the market crashes, don't move
Exactly.
money. But say you move your money out of that, and then the market crashes, should you go back into that? Like, put your money back into that target date fund?
Yeah, what we kind of talk about when you're mentioning there is kind of market timing, kind of, that's what you hope for, right? You hope you know, they always tell you buy low, sell high, right?
Yeah.
So
Most
what
people
you just,
don't.
yeah, I guess it would depend on where you're at as far as your age, what your plan is. I mean, first of all, if you're young, you shouldn't have taken it out, right?
Exactly.
I mean, the market is going to go down, and you're probably going to get a statement on a quarterly statement where it says, all right, you're down X amount of dollars. But I wouldn't panic, right? Because, again, you guys are young, and you have many years before that retirement date comes. But again, about 18 years before, you want to start paying a little bit more attention to it, unless you're in a target date fund, right? Because it's
done
doing
for
it
you.
for you, right? So, you know, to answer your question, kind of, you shouldn't really bounce in and out of a target date fund. That's not, you know, it's designed to allocate you appropriately throughout, you know, your career up to that retirement date.
Like, if he's referring to like day trading type stuff, like.
Yeah,
they're
that's
like
frowned upon.
on how many transactions you can.
Yes, so
Yeah.
if you went in and you tried to do a trade, let's just say between the stable value
30.
fund and one of the equity funds in the plan, you're gonna get a market timing policy, comes up immediately that you have to read and agree to. And if you start moving large amounts of money back and forth between two investment options, you're gonna get flagged eventually, and you're not gonna be able to do a trade for a certain period of time. So there are restrictions and limits, and day trading is just not a good idea. It's just not. It's extremely difficult, yes.
Just
Yeah.
Also, just so they explain, so they're, like their default fund, the one based on their age.
Mhm.
Right.
They're also, as far as that's not a guaranteed rate, there will also be some investment, if you wanna get into the fixed, is where you're guaranteed.
Right, so that's a
Right.
good point.
It has risk.
Right, so the target date investment option, whether it be, you know, we said we have the 2010, 2020, 30, right up to, you know, 2060. 2020 fund is less aggressive than the 2060, right, 2030, according as you go up. But just because you're in that investment option, that could still have a negative return for a period, a quarter. That could still happen. The only fund in the plan where you won't ever see a negative return is that stable value SAGIC fund, the fixed account. That is the only one. The other ones, priced every day, they go up, they go down every day. Price comes out at the end of the business day on each of the investment options. But any of those other investment options in the plan, you could see a negative return. So it's important to know that. Thank you, Kim. You had a question.
Yeah, like that magic number of $1 million. Does the target fund have like the potential for that?
Sure, absolutely.
Target date.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, a 2060 fund, for example. Yeah, I mean, if you're working for 30 years and the market does well, I could see that happening, absolutely. You know, is it a guarantee? Unfortunately, nothing's
No
really a
guarantees, but
guarantee,
but the safe one.
right? But you want your money to work for you throughout your career, right? You guys are working hard for it, right? Every contribution that goes in, you guys are busting your butts. So, you know, make your money work for you while it's in there. And you said there's millionaires, guys with 2 houses. Sean mentioned about, you know, the pension. I don't have a
Right.
pension plan. Empower doesn't have one. So,
And I also want to add that when you have a pension and then you know at some point there's Social Security, those could be considered as some of your stable value stuff, the safety stuff, where, and I think Sean had said that, it's like, yeah, you guys are lucky you've got that. Not everybody has that, so there could be a very different mentality. So the potential is with a fund such as this, you may be able to be a little bit more aggressive than somebody who didn't have those the pension available
exactly,
to them.
you have a choice to invest those funds how you
Right.
want.
I throw numbers at you like, your pension, you guys retired, it's gotta be just a rough number, $4,000 a month. Your Social Security, rough number, $3,000 a month. And you could take, if you have $1 million, just take the interest out of that, at $3,600, $36,000. And you're retired making $127,000 a year, doing nothing. And that's still not touching that $1 million in the fund, you just burn it off with the interest.
That's a great example. Like, let's say you got $1 million in your account the day you retire. That stable value fund that's in the plan, let's say it's at 6% at that time, and it hovers around 6% for a year, right? So if you get $1 million on January 1st, you go into that fund, and again, it does change quarterly, but let's say it stays at 6 for the full year. 12/31, you got $1,060,000. So you take what Sean said, your pension payment of 4, you estimated 3 for Social Security. Now you got 60 grand to play with, which I think that comes out, I'm not sure what that is monthly.
5 grand.
Is that 5? Okay. I'm not quick with the math on that. So there's another 5 grand, right? So that's 12 grand you get in a month, and you're never touching the $1 million.
And even with the Social Security, I mean, that's thinking in today's dollars.
Right. And that's something that the way that this account is when you do retire, right, you have some options of how you want to take the money out. And a majority of the individuals, and I'm sure Kim could vouch for this, is they take a monthly payment to help offset what they're getting from their pension plan and their Social Security, right? And that's another important thing is everyone asks, the question we get a lot is, well, how much what am I going to need to know or have when I retire? Like when you're about 15 years or 18 years before retirement, you can get a pretty good idea of what your costs are going to be when you're going to retire at 62 or 65, right? You're going to know, A, your mortgage is going to be paid off, B, the kids are going to be gone, right? So you're probably not going to need as much as you may think you need, but it's important to think about those things. Don't just I get folks that call me sometimes and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna retire in 2 years, and we take it, and they're 99% in the market, you know, and it takes a hit, and I'm like, you know, you kind of took a big hit here. So it's vitally important, and it's a great opportunity for you guys to prepare. And like I said, I've seen people retire before they should have retired because they did such a really good job of allocating appropriately, you know, and hopefully the market does its thing and it continues to go up, and you'll all be in pretty good shape. But no guarantees, though.
Any more questions for Mike and Joan?
Anything, guys? Yes.
I noticed on the app, it was just 2 questions. So it says I'm 100% invested in that yearly plan retirement.
Okay.
But is there
The
a
target.
way, it's the 2060, is there a way to see the percentages in that account on like the high risk?
Yes,
There's
so,
a
yes,
Morningstar
you
report,
can do
right?
that. There's Morningstar is the
There's
number
a-
one provider in
a
the
sheet on it.
industry, right, that provides performance information on mutual funds. Every record keeper uses them. So when you get in and you go click on where your balance
That's
is.
it. Yeah, I was
click-
gonna say, it's probably highlighted, it might be blue or something. You just click on it and a screen will open up with a page about
With
that
like a
fund.
more detailed breakdown?
So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a Morningstar
Oh, you can
report
go
that's gonna
crazy
show
with it.
you all the performance of it over the last however many years it's been in existence.
Okay.
It'll show you everything you see there, and then down the bottom of that first page, they usually have the top 10 holdings
Okay.
that fund is invested in, right? Because a mutual fund could invest in 300 different investment options, right? It's a mutual fund. It's not like a one piece of stock like a
Yeah, and
Disney where.
They're not
okay?
static, they're gonna change.
And then on when you guys switched over from Mass Mutual to Empower,
Yes.
my account, I only have access from 2022 when they re-transferred the account. Is there a way to look back on like those other 4 years that I have prior
It shows
when
up,
we were with
doesn't
Empower?
it?
So.
On the Empower, you can see some of that past
Yeah,
stuff.
well, yeah, but we're Empower now, right? Mass
Right.
Mutual was bought by Empower. So I've been 21, we moved over, right?
I've been able to pull
so-
up some past Mass Mutual statements on different plans.
If you go onto your account and you look under statements, you should see all your statements back to when that plan came to Mass Mutual, when the plan did, which was
Okay.
February of 21.
Okay.
So before that, we don't have those
Right,
statements.
because that was a Prudential.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Got it.
But what's funny about that, well, because they bought Prudential too, so.
Oh, did they?
Yes, sir.
When we retire, does that end our Empower, like investments? Or is that up to us to be like, okay, now I want to pull them?
Up to you.
It's up to you. There is one thing where you're required to take money.
Yeah.
It's called a required minimum disbursement.
Right
They
now, for
keep
them,
updating
it's
it,
gonna be
right?
75
Yeah,
at
I just wanna
least.
know if that was gonna, like,
They might
end
make it
our
older.
plan or, like,
No, you don't have to get your money out of it, you can keep it.
When you
there.
stop working, the only thing you can't do with the plan is no more money can come into it,
okay.
right? Unless you go back to work.
Well, from the employer.
Right.
Would they be able to, say for instance, if somewhere they'd never rolled in a prior plan from something else, after they would retire, they could still move that in though? I'm just asking another annoying question.
Oh, but you still can move money around the investment options?
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
yeah.
Any other questions, folks?
Yes.
Yes.
So you were saying that they pull, like, the managers, they pull some of the investment funds sometimes to swap them out. If you have something invested in something they pull out, what happens to your, like, the money you had invested into it?
Okay, so let's say you were in Fund A, and it was decided that that fund is not doing what it's supposed to be doing, so there's a decision made to replace that with Fund B.
Yeah.
So what happens is
You
35,
automatically get invested into Fund B?
yeah, so 35 days before the change is gonna occur, a communication is sent out to every member and letting know Fund A is going away, it's gonna be replaced with Fund B. You don't have to do anything, we'll do it for you and move you from Fund A to Fund B. And you have the option of, and the communication includes this as well, it's like if you don't wanna go into Fund B, you have up until this date to change it to something else. But yeah, there's nothing you're required to do. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions, folks?
right.
No, I just,
Okay.
yeah, thank you, folks. Listen, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. This is really, really important stuff. Makes a big difference in, 30, 35 years from now. So good luck to everybody. You got a great group here with Local 475. I really enjoy working with them, and hopefully we'll see you guys again at an outing. I golfed in the outing earlier this year, but maybe we'll see you guys at an outing. But remember, if you want to have a talk with Joan
Right.
by your account, just
Flyers
take
are
one of the
there.
flyers. They're going to be up here, okay? Thank you, guys.
One thing to be cautious with your surety fund, like down the road, you guys start having money and you want to make a withdrawal, there's certain stipulations that allow you to make a withdrawal. Just keep in mind, there's a 10% penalty, and you're probably going to pay at least 25% in taxes, right? So you're going to lose 35% of your money when you make a withdrawal. That's very, it's not the best thing to do. I've done it, but, you are going to lose some of your money. Yep. All right, I'm going to bring up Mark Hendrickson. He's a retiree, and I want him to just tie this whole thing together. All you apprentices, like from apprenticeship to being a journeyman, and now a retiree, and how it all comes together. And I just figured a few words from somebody who's experienced all levels. He's somebody who took advantage of things in the local, really went out, worked hard, made a good name for himself, ran a lot of work, big projects. I always kid him. He was the main guy that did Giant Stadium, and he really did big jobs, and I worked for him. He's a good guy. He gets it. He gets the funds. He gets the local, the highs, the lows, the ups, the downs, all the benefits. All right, so he took time out. He just had his knee replaced, but he's taking the time to come and just say a few words to you guys. All right, Mark Hendrickson.
I hope I don't let you down. It was a pretty nice introduction. The one thing I want to say is I'm looking around the room, I see a lot of able young bodies, and it makes me feel good to know that I'll be getting my 120th pension check next week, as long as Sean doesn't blow the budget on lunch. So I hope he didn't do that. I'll give you a little background on myself. I'm from the area. I grew up in Bridgewater, right up on the hill up there. I was actually born in Newark. I lived in Newark for 5 days at St. Mike's while they straightened my blood out, and then we grew up over here in Bridgewater. I went to Bridgewater West High School, and upon graduating, I got a job with a local plumber, not far, right up this road here. And I engaged in the plumbing night school over at the Somerset County Voc Technical School. And I was going through that program when my wife's girlfriend's dad approached me, who was a union plumber, and he worked out of our local as a welder. And he wanted to know if I would come talk to him about a different opportunity for working other than what I was doing. So I spent the evening with him. He explained to me basically about being in the union, what it meant, responsibilities, opportunities, and also explained to me that the local that he was in was not a good one to be in at the time. That's why he was working out of the other one. So he guided me on which union to join. At the time, that was called Local 300. That was based out of Annandale, New Jersey. And I thought it was a good idea. I spoke with my girlfriend, who was my wife by the time I got in, and we thought that was a good opportunity to go in. So fast forward, I'm in my third year of non-union school. I applied to the local. I went to my interview. Now, I went to the interview. It was on I think it was to start a class in May 1st. So I assume it was like probably in March. And they told me that, thank you for coming in. You seem very qualified, but you're not eligible because you have to be 20 years old by May 1st, and you won't be 20 years old until May 31st. So I was pretty dejected. Wasn't sure what to think at the time. So they say, continue doing what you're doing. Again, I have no relatives in the local, so I was pretty foreign as far as, anybody to talk to. The only person I talked to wasn't even a member of the local at the time. So I thought the best thing for me to do at that time was go back to the VOTech, continue with my education. I also took a welding class at that time. So I also advised my wife, who we were engaged at the time. We had planned a wedding for the next summer. I said, well, we're not going to get married next summer because I think I'm going to start this new job, so we're going to have to change the date. So we got married in March, and with the anticipation of starting in May. Fast forward, I got in. It was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. I was sitting there, it was like over 45 years ago, I was sitting there like you guys are today. The class that we had was only 9, and there's only 6 of us left. I'm 67 years old, and I've been retired for 10 years. And all the things that they're telling you, they're true. Sean threw some numbers out. Those numbers are pretty damn accurate of the kind of money I'm taking today. I just started taking Social Security last month, and all I can say is it works. It's a long process, but there's a lot of advantages to being in the union. You're all working, I assume, or close to be work. Everybody's working, or there's opportunities to work. You get free education, and you get paid while you work in a trade that is very respectable. And it took me very far. You've got great mentors, and I had great mentors. The first great mentor was the one that told me what to do to get in. And the next great mentors I had were along the way. If you show interest in your trade, and you have to go above and beyond. There's older members they want to take you under their wing, and they want to teach you. And I think it's because they want to be responsible to say, I saw that guy succeed. And it happened to me. I'll take a drink. I'm not a public speaker all the time anymore. I spend most of my life vacationing, if you want the truth. At this point. It's a good life. Upon getting out of my apprenticeship, I'll tell you about my apprenticeship. I worked, again, that way, only about a mile or two. I worked in a fabrication shop for about 3 3/4 years of my apprenticeship. It was an odd apprenticeship because I got to weld. So I certified welded, and I always heard that welders work all the time, which for the most part I think they still do, right? And so I certified on sub-arc welding, regular stick welding, and TIG welding. And I say it was odd because I kind of got to work myself with a partner. So it wasn't like a coffee situation or like the normal type things that you wind up doing. So I had very good exposure to excellent welders and no time off. So basically I had a full employment throughout my whole apprenticeship. The shop went out of business the day I went out of my time, so I'm back out on the road, right? So when I say out on the road, I had 2 jobs in between landing a job at the Exxon facility up in Clinton, New Jersey, which is by my house. I live in Hunterdon County. And I got on the job and I was pretty full of myself at this point. I went to the general foreman running the job, and I told him I wanted to be a foreman on the job. So they told me they'd give me a chance, and they did. I had already enrolled in foreman training school because through the through the Mechanical Contractors Association, they offer many different types of training. One of them was foreman school, and I took advantage of every one of those. There's blueprint reading, there's contract reading, you name it, I took it, and because I was hungry. I saw an opportunity to get ahead, and there are definitely opportunities to get ahead. When I took the foreman's job up in Exxon, my next mentor was a superintendent that was a resident on the job, also a steam fitter, retired from this local. And he used to come and talk to me during the day and ask me, what my plans were, what I was doing, how I was allocating the men, how I was allocating the material for the men. And I impressed them. And they gave me more responsibility. Next thing I knew, I was running areas up on that project. And then I wound up being on that project for 27 months and working with the Exxon engineers, starting the facility up. And that was back in 1983. And that was I worked for the Frank McBride Company, which is no longer in business. At the time, the Frank McBride Company was the largest mechanical contractor in the country. And I spent 33 years with the Frank McBride Company. When I left Exxon, they had a project for me over, which I think it's now Bristol Myers. It was Siva Geig at the time over in Summit. I had quite a few men. Every project that this company had was always multi-million-dollar projects. I was lucky enough to be surrounded by great mentors throughout the course of my career. From there, I went down into Newark, worked at Budweiser. I was down in Budweiser, did multiple projects down there, handled over 300 men, and it's been quite a journey. I think before I was 30 years old, my mentor, Art Fredericks, came to me because his wife was sick and told me that that he had to take some time off from work. So he wanted to know if I'd fill in for him for a few months because he thought his wife was going to die. I told him I would. I think at that time I was doing Gateway 4 in Newark. And so I assigned somebody to the project. I filled in for him, and his wife never died. So at that point, I was managing probably close to $50 million worth of work in the central part of New Jersey, because that's what his responsibility was. That became my responsibility under 30 years old. Was I overwhelmed? Yeah, pretty much. But I didn't want to let him down. And that was pretty much the driving force of my career. They kept throwing more and more things at me, and I didn't want to let anybody down. I grew up quick, but it's probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. Oh no, I've choked up.
You didn't see that coming.
All I can say is,
Mark, one thing with Mark, my favorite line, and you guys all know, because there's none of them here, there's no foreman or general foreman. You've all had good ones, bad ones, pain in the asses, and some really, really helpful ones, right? But he would be the project manager, and I sent them some guys, and maybe they weren't the best, and he just said to me, very simple, he said, Sean, it's your job to send me the men, and it's my job to send them back. And that's reality. I mean, if you're not doing your job as a steam fitter, we need people in those positions, right? You can't be everybody's best friend, you can't take care of everybody, right? If they're screwing up, they're not showing up, they're not getting the job done, they're not helping this local, which means they're not helping our future, right? That was his simple line. My job to send them back, and we just.
And sometimes we
I
did.
had a job. He had respect for me, and I had respect for him.
I was 100% honest with Sean all the time, all the business agents. And here's the thing: is their job is to send you on a job, but your job isn't a job. You have a career, and that's how you have to look at it. Every day is an interview for the next job. I just happen to be lucky and be with the same company for 33 years. But I will tell you, I remember everybody that came and was fair with me, and I was always fair with them. So maybe we'd hire people for a weekend. I'd bring 100 guys in on a weekend to go work at Budweiser or over at the General Motors plant. And the guys that were working the best, you always remember them. Maybe you call them back, or maybe you could refer them to somebody. You never know. So that's what you have to look at. This isn't a job. This is a career. It's a lifelong career, and those numbers they throw out are real, and you can make it work. I never thought I'd do the things I did, but you have to be hungry and look out for yourself every day with the help of your other members. There's people here that have risen. Sean worked for me. He quit me to be a business agent. He better do that. Bobby's dad worked for me as an apprentice up at the Exxon facility when I first started. He became a business manager as well. Mike Mulvaney, who's like fourth highest guy in the whole local, he worked as me for a foreman on 2 different projects. It's unlimited. Mark McManus worked for me right up the road up at one of the Johnson facilities. It can happen. So that to say is like, everybody has an idea there's nepotism and all that kind of crap. There's no nepotism. If you're a good guy, people want you around. If you're a good guy, they'll move you up. I didn't think I was going to be doing these things that I did. I still can't believe it. But I did. And people will stand there, and if you're good, they want to be around you. Your peers will be around you. Your mentors will be around you. It's good. So that's all I have to say. All I can say is this. Every day, do the best you can. People will notice. Okay. Thanks.
All right, that's pretty much going to wrap everything up. This is the first time we did something like this. I hope you found it educational, and it's just something that'll help bring you, just keep education is going to just, keep the local moving forward. And there's going to be another classes coming through right behind you. You're just passing through. That's what I always say. We're all just passing through. A few years from now, I will just be a memory. All right. Somebody else will be here, somebody else, and hopefully the local just continues. It's 120 years old, and I just want it to be the best it can be. All right? So with that said, I think lunch is open, right, Jenny? Lunch is ready. Grab a bite to eat. Please eat. All right? I don't care if you eat and run, but eat. All right? Because we paid for this food. Right? And I know it's Friday and it's hot and you want to run, but eat. All right? Thank you.